Hello, everybody. It is Starrapter here, and I'm joined once again by the full crew this week for Outer Rim Transmission, episode number 10. I'm joined by Ben and Milton. How you guys doing?
I'm good, man. How you doing today?
I'm doing pretty well. It's got a couple thunderstorms around here. Things are cooling down a little bit, but I'm happy to be here talking Star Wars as always.
Oh yeah, it's always a lot of fun. Glad to be back, and we have a lot to talk about this week.
Yes, yeah. So we have a lot to talk about, but it doesn't come from official Star Wars news. We'll put it that way. We're playing around with how we are setting up the podcast every week. This is like our third iteration of the podcast. So I kind of coined the term for our first thing we'll jump into every week as our week with Star Wars. It's that simple. We'll just come up with anything that kind of struck us, thoughts, experiences, anything with Star Wars. That I know you guys both have something you're bringing to the table. And I'm going to start off with Ben because you shared a pretty cool video with me, and I want you to tell the people all about it because I liked it quite a bit and it took me back.
All right, so I was doing cardio this week. I'm currently dieting, so I was just on the treadmill doing some cardio, and I had a suggested video pop up on YouTube, and it was a like Throwback Thursday trailer for an old Star Wars book called Vector Prime, and that was the first book of the whole Yuuzhan Vong book series. It's like 22 or 23 books, I believe, and it started in 1999. So I was like, why is there a book trailer? Like, what's a book? What is even a book trailer? Nowadays we don't even have anything like that. So I clicked on it, and it was like an official trailer actually, and it was Mark Hamill narrating it, and it was so cool because it was Mark Hamill in like the actual, like, he was actually playing Luke in the trailer, and he was like, we me and my friends, we fought against so many forces of evil, and blah 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 blah, and like, he went through all these different things, and it was literally a preview for this book in 1999, and it was so crazy just hearing Mark Hamill talking as Luke again, and it was just crazy to think about, just because, at that time anyways, we potentially would have never seen Luke on screen again. So that was actually the last time we would have ever heard Luke like talk.
Mm-hmm.
So it was really cool hearing that. And, just for the fact that it was actually Luke, post Return of the Jedi, which was pretty cool. And then, as you and me and Milt were messaging about, it's just cool, like, seeing old trailers like that. It's cool that they just they just really bring back the memories of like the old 90s trailers and like the early 2000s, like some of the like cheesy, but
Mm-hmm.
it's just fun knowing they had an actual book trailer and had Luke Skywalker narrating it.
Yeah, I think they did a really good job with that trailer because I had never seen it before. But like you said, hearing Mark Hamill and hearing the music and the production quality of the entire trailer, like hearing that famous Emperor theme song just coming into play, and the fact that this is a continuation, kind of like the Thrawn trilogy was a huge continuation, and this is something in a different era of Star Wars, still after Return of the Jedi, but dealing with something, but like you felt like the gravitas of it, like, oh, this is an important time in the history of Star Wars. Like they actually get the actor to promote this darn book. Like, oh wow, this is something big. This is something important. And I never did get a chance to read the New Jedi Order. Vector Prime was a book, or is a book, that is infamous among fans, as it is includes things like, I believe that's the one where Chewie gets crushed by a moon. I
Yep,
have, yeah.
they start the series by killing off Chewbacca by him getting crushed by a moon. So, if you want to check out an interesting book series, that's definitely a way to get it. Or, that's funny to think about, like, at that time anyways, they're reintroducing Star Wars. It's 1999. Fans are like, woo, Star Wars is back, The Phantom Menace, and then Attack the Clones. And here's Lucasfilm. They like put a stamp of approval. You can kill Chewbacca. Like, it's crazy.
Yeah, and as a quick foreshadowing to what we're going to talk about later in the episode, it seems like they always want to do something to pull you in. If it's a big series, right? If it's a big series, like we're going to talk later about War of the Bounty Hunters, there's that huge reveal at the end of the issue. So if they want to get your attention and keep your attention for like several books, or in a case later on, several comics, they throw something at you that is going to blow your mind. It usually happens with these first issues of the comics. It's like, all right, we're going to throw this at you, so we hook you, so you have to keep coming back month by month or week by week, whatever it might be. So it's like, what's bigger than killing off Chewbacca? Like, this is a movie character that has so much legacy, and people just love this character, and we're going to just kill him off in a book. And so if we could do that, that basically means that we could do anything. Like, who knows? Maybe even Luke Skywalker could die by the end of the series. I don't know. I've never actually read it, so I don't even know when Luke Skywalker dies. But I'm sure somebody will know in the comments or something.
That series, that definitely really built the legacy. Like, sure, obviously the legacy of Luke was built on the original trilogy, of course. But that series of books really built the legacy of Luke, of how great and how powerful of a Jedi he was, just because of, like, long story short, the Yuzin Vong, the aliens they were dealing with, they basically were outside of the Force, where, Luke and like the Jedi, they weren't basically able to sense them or anything in the Force. So they were basically having to fly in blind whenever they were like facing these creatures. So, that whole series, it really emphasized like how powerful Luke was post Return of the Jedi, and it just really built up Luke's like legacy as like the greatest Jedi in whoever lived in the galaxy in the original Legends canon.
Yeah, and I mean the series is called New Jedi Order, so I assume that Luke in this makes the New Jedi Order, and he's training the next generation of apprentices, correct?
Yeah, you have that going on. And then, like, I still remember one of the biggest, like, it's toward the end of the series. It's probably like book 20 or 21 or so. There's actually a book where you think Luke dies for like 3 chapters because he's in space. He's like in his X-Wing. And, again, this shows like how powerful Luke is. He's in his X-Wing. You literally, I guess you read it, but you see the X-Wing crash, literally explode.
Oh.
And like the villain, like they were talking like, oh, we defeated like Jedi Master Luke Skywalker, blah, blah, blah. And then it goes a couple chapters, and then it goes back to where the villain is. And like the villain like goes back to like the bridge of the ship. And Luke was like standing in the bridge of the ship. Like he was so powerful in the Force. Like, I don't know, like he basically teleported himself inside the ship.
What the heck?
So it was, so like, it really just basically gave Luke the basically Star Killer type treatment, like way over the top power and all that. And I mean, heck, even like with Star Killer, like that whole thing, that he basically was like the prototype Luke if Luke would have like been trained under Vader.
Yeah.
So like
exactly.
that's basically what Luke was in these books and like the whole extended Legends canon, just because, they could just run wild. And, that basically goes off of our episode a few weeks ago talking about LucasArts basically letting the writers be like as creative and crazy as they wanted to be.
Milton, do you have any experience with the New Jedi Order, or have you ever read Vector Prime?
Yes, I have. I actually have all the books on my iPhone right now.
Oh.
Yeah. I mean, all the audiobooks from that particular series, I've listened to them. Usually when I go to sleep or if I'm playing a game or something, they're all good. There's not one book in there where it disappoints me because it further expands the expanded universe and that particular era of Star Wars. So, like I said, to me, I love listening to those books till this day. Like they feel like you're listening to a movie. They have the sound effects. They have the dialogue. It's good dialogue that they write in the books. I mean, yeah, some of it can be a little wonky. I mean, it's literature, but at the same time, like, you feel like you're watching an extension of the films,
but
broken down to like, books. So to me, that's why I've always been a big fan of the Star Wars audiobooks, especially how they get. I think R.A. Salvatore wrote that particular one.
He did.
Yep.
And then I know I don't know who read it. It might have been Mark Thompson maybe, but usually like if Mark Thompson
Mm-hmm.
or Jonathan Davis are the gentlemen who read those books, I'm hooked because they do a really good job with the voices. They do a really good job at expressing the tone of what the characters are saying through their words and how they read the dialogue.
Yeah.
So yeah, I
Okay.
love the books.
I was uncertain if they had the quality of the audiobooks like in Legends because I know they had it for like the current stuff, but I had no idea
Mhm.
that it was that quality even back then. That's pretty awesome.
Oh, for sure. I mean, now there's some here there that probably I want to say mid 90s to late 2000s where some of the books were a little off. Like I know the Phantom Menace audiobook isn't the greatest to listen to, but I still enjoy it sometimes. I think episode 2 is okay, but clearly episode 3, the whole Anakin trilogy is so dope how they do it. So
Mm-hmm.
again, I
Mm-hmm.
love that particular series, even the Legacy of the Force, which is the next
Legacy of the
series
Force is
after,
great.
which is after the New Jedi Order, which is fire
Oh.
too. So
Well,
yeah.
well, the great thing about the Legacy of the Force series, I believe that was the series actually where it's basically where a lot of people were theorizing the connections maybe to the Book of Boba Fett and maybe like kind of the Ahsoka show or whatever with Captain Rex, just because. So like in I believe it was in that series. It may have not been. Anyways, there was this series. There was this story. It was like a side story in one of those books about Boba Fett. He was trying to hunt down a uh, a, a remaining clone he heard about, out in
Oh.
the galaxy because basically the Kaminoan process of stopping him from aging stopped. So he starting to age rapidly, and he was starting to like get old very quickly. And, he was basically dying. So there was like this whole side story of, an old grizzled Boba Fett trying to
Oh.
find a clone trooper, basically before he died. And
Oh.
that was a really good story back then. And I've seen people like theorize like, hey, maybe Captain Rex, gets in the Ahsoka show and maybe Ahsoka's helping him, and they kind of adapted that story potentially. So yeah, I don't know, there's a lot of good stories in Legends. Like, sure, it may be Legends, but hey, they're great stories either way.
Mm, mm, mm. And because we're talking about a trailer for a book, and they actually did put out a trailer for the High Republic, and I'm going to talk about that a little bit later. Introducing the whole era, and I thought that was pretty effective. It showed a lot of
Yep.
artwork and stuff as well, and had some cool music. So that's going strong. But let's go over to you, Milton. What was your week in Star Wars? Do you have anything that's worth talking about?
Probably not as exciting as Ben's because I love those old books and all that type of stuff. So that's really exciting to hear about and be a part of. I'd say my thing this week was just having a debate with some guys that I'm really good friends with. We have a wrestling group chat that we do, and these guys were teasing me all week about how much they love The Last Jedi and The Rise of Skywalker. And clearly, as we all know, Milton is not a fan of those two movies. However, I'm going to be objective and say the reasons why, not just because I hate them. He's like, no, I'm gonna say why I did not like them in a very objective way, but probably a little very brash way. So that was my week debating my buddies who were trying to pretty much say that Jedi or Rey was the ultimate Jedi and Luke was a coward, and like my buddy was trying to be funny, but that's what we do. We always banter about pop culture, whether it's wrestling, Star Wars, DC, Marvel, whatever. And in this case, it was Star Wars this week. Like pretty much he was trying to compare. He pretty much said that Luke and LeBron are less than Ray and Michael Jordan. And I'm like, wait a minute, you cannot put Ray in the same category as Michael freaking Jordan. Okay, like that's disrespectful. And I pretty much listed off and cut in wrestling terms it's called promos. I cut a promo on my friend pretty much saying that Anakin, Obi-Wan, Mace Windu, Yoda, etc., were all wreck Ray. Let's be real here. And of course, my friend was giving me pushback. But again, that's just fun banter that we do throughout the week. And that was my thing with Star Wars this week, just talking about the movies, why I disagreed with the direction, talking about J.J. Abrams' recent article about the so-called no plan that they had in place. Just talk about the direction of the company with Lucasfilm being taken over back in 2015
Mhm.
Yep.
or what is it, 2015. So yeah, I mean, even having those debates is nice though because that helps me like just think of just think of fresh ideas. It thinks of different perspectives. It also helps me just, again, better understand, the process, whether it's filmmaking, business, how genre is created, that type of stuff. So yeah, that was
Hmm.
my week of Star Wars.
There you go. It's always fun to have a healthy discussion as long as nobody threatens one another in doing so, and everybody has a nice
Right.
civil conversation. That's part of the fun sometimes. But
Yeah,
Oh,
and that's what's nice about it. We can just sit there and banter, and like I said, I know it's all out of fun. And these guys just do that because honestly, out of that whole group, I'm the only one that probably really loves Star Wars like that. And they've all seen the movies, but they know that I'm a big Star Wars head, so they know. Like at one point, my one buddy tried to say, "Well, Jar Jar was actually the hero of the whole saga,"
mhm.
and I legit was like, "Wait a minute!" Like I had to laugh out loud because he was trying to be funny about that. But yeah, it's just stuff like that. So.
yeah, yeah, yeah.
Oh
As
yeah,
far
those type of debates are always. I mean, they're always fun with like friends or family or whoever. Like, it's always good, fun, healthy debates. Like, you know, and that's the thing is, I think us as a fandom, a lot of times, like, especially on Twitter, Twitter's like, it's literally Moss Eisley. It's
yeah,
it's just so crazy because I think people forget we're like all on the same side. We're all Star Wars fans here. But if you go on Twitter and say you don't like the sequel trilogy, you're canceled. So like when it comes to that stuff, it's like people remember this is like like you said, Chris, like a healthy, fun debate, and just have fun with it. Like one of my good friends, he always texts me, and if he's watching this, he knows who I'm talking about. He'll always text me, and he'll literally just text me out of nowhere and go, Rogue One's the best Star Wars ever. And he knows like that I'm just like, get out of here with that crap. And he'll just do that. But it's all like fun and games or whatever. Or he'll like text me like Saul Guerrero's like the best. And I'm like, oh dude. But it's a lot of fun really, in my opinion. It's like sports, like you were saying, Milton, like with the whole sports thing. Just
yeah.
it's fun to have the sports debates.
Yeah, yeah, and sometimes you just gotta know when to step away because I'll tell you an experience I had last week. Um, because we were discussing the latest episode of Bad Batch the day it came out. I was on Twitter, and somebody commented about the Rancor and stuff, because that was a big topic of debate. The whole name switch up with, is it Patissa or is it Mushi? And if it is Mushi, they retcon the name of Patissa from canon and make her the Return of the Jedi Rancor that Luke kills. And I was on the fence of like, on the side of, well, I think it's a different Rancor. And this is my reasoning why. And it was like a really nerdy explanation. I was like, well, the color tone doesn't match. And the way the head is shaped doesn't look anything near like the other Rancor. But then I was like, I also have no idea because I've never seen a juvenile Rancor. So maybe they changed drastically over the years. And
Well,
then there was a big thread about it. And I just was like, well, if it is the same, and I just kind of backed down because I'm like, it's not worth like arguing over a stupid thing like this. I just put my own 2 cents in and I step away.
Well, here's the thing with that. I think a lot of people forget about. So who's to say? I mean, I'm not sure if there's like any confirmation one way or the other, but who's to say that's not the rank war? Like, okay, so its name's Moochie. So its name's Moochie, coming from like Sid's point of view. But Chris, like if I go and give you my dog and you don't, what if Jabba didn't know its name? Like could it not get renamed? Like it's like a pet. Like if
Yeah,
I
I
give
guess
my
so.
if I give my dog away to another family, what if they decide to rename it? Like I can't do anything about that. So like, I don't know. I think things like that. Some people, it really gets into the weeds.
It
Like
does.
it really gets into the
There's
weeds of
really no
Star Wars.
reason about
Like if we're arguing about the name of a rank war that was on screen for like
it.
I don't even know less than 5 minutes total, um, you know that obviously means we all love Star Wars, and like those type of discussions don't have to turn into like, oh my gosh, you disagree with me about an alien thing that was not even a side character. It was like a plot device or whatever for Return of the Jedi, and you you're mad at me about it, so I need to block you and tell all my friends, blah 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 blah. Like stuff like that. I'm like, people, look at the big picture. Like this is all just fun and games. Like we all love this stuff. So just have fun with it. Like, that's one of my biggest things I always loved, like about George Lucas. Like he goes, has like episode 1 comes out, people criticize him for Jar Jar. And what's he do? He goes and puts Jar Jar is like basically one of the main catalysts that like help Palpatine gain power.
Mm-hmm.
Like, sure, that may have already been planned before the criticisms, but what if George just was like, you know what, whatever, I'm gonna just make the fans mad and make Jar Jar be the one to give Palpatine power, like, so like I don't know. I think people forget like the big picture of things versus just the the small, versus just all the little details about this, that, or the other thing.
Yeah. It'll drive you up a wall if you find all the inconsistencies for the littlest things, right?
Oh, for sure. And I guess when it comes to stuff like that, like, sure, we all love canon. Like, I love like the consistencies when it comes to canon and things like that. But hey, if people, we got to remember, the creators, they are people too, and there's hundreds of people working on these shows and movies and books and everything, or well, probably, thousands of people most likely.
Mm-hmm.
Anyways, who's to say, like, there could be just some slip ups here and there, but the thing is, they're magnified 1,000 fold because fans of Star Wars and Marvel and DC, we're so crazed about this. Look, we're sitting here on a Friday night having a live stream podcast talking about Star Wars. So we obviously are all crazy about Star Wars. Mm-hmm. And, we're the ones picking over Star Wars like with a fine-tooth comb. But then, like, if you have someone like your parents watch The Bad Batch or whoever, they may watch it and go, oh, yeah, that's Jabba's rank war, and keep on moving. Or they may not even remember that from watching Return of the Jedi. Like, they may just see it as another side alien in this show.
Yeah.
So I think people forget we are in like the niche of things, like,
mm-hmm.
Talking Star Wars online with other fellow fans, that is a niche. And like the other, probably 70% of the audience is made up of more of like the general audience type people anyways. So, we all forget that though.
Yeah, very, very good points there. And just take it in strides, right? Just take it in strides, just enjoy it, and just relax. Sometimes you just got to relax and take it all in. As far as for what I want to talk about for my week in Star Wars, this kind of ties into like my little housekeeping, where I'm going to mention the videos I put out this week, because I did get a chance to start looking at the wave 2 of phase 1 of the High Republic. So I got a couple books I'm reading currently. I finished the one that is going to be written by the one that's written by Kevin Scott, called The Rising Storm, which is the adult novel from Del Rey, which is pretty much like the sequel to Light of the Jedi by Charles Soule, which opened up the High Republic. And just a real quick synopsis, or rather just blurb about it, because I do have my review on the channel. Absolutely incredible. There's this place, there's this Republic fair that is going on this planet called Valo, and the Chancellor Lena So is trying to provide unity for the Republic out in the Outer Rim. So she's hosting this big fair that represents all the different planets of the Republic, and it's probably not the best time. And there's people that warn her about it, because the Nile had been responsible for the Great Disaster and causing mayhem. They're like, yeah, it might not be the best time to have this, because like several months ago we had all that trouble with those guys. They might start trouble again. And little do they know, hey, they start trouble again. So it's basically like an Avengers style Star Wars book, where you have all these Jedi, these different characters that are stuck on this planet. They don't have communications to the outside, so they have to basically fight tooth and nail with the Nile, which really do represent such an awesome archetype of a villain that doesn't have to be a Force-sensitive villain to be able to kill Jedi, to be able to just completely shut down an entire government. Like, these guys mean business. Even though they basically like barbarians in space, they have different kind of technology, whether it be their like poison clouds or the way they can travel in space is using the path engine. It bypasses like hyperspace routes, so they can actually like jump into the atmosphere of a planet and be there instantly and just start like wrecking people. It's it's terrifying. Like this book is dark. We're seeing
That's pretty
things.
neat.
Yeah, we're seeing things in this book that we haven't seen Star Wars do. Period. They take really big risk with this book for some mature content in Star Wars, and not just of the violent kind. Some other kind of mature stuff is happening in this book. So
Mm.
I'm very happy with how far they're pushing the envelope with this, and the fact that they're introducing characters, in this book, but also fleshing out characters of the other books. Like we're seeing characters like Bel Zettifar, we're seeing Elzar Mann, and then we're seeing new characters like like this new reporter girl named Rill, and all these characters are being able to be built upon and having these complex layers. And you're seeing the Force again, just like Light of the Jedi. You're seeing the Force through different eyes in these books. You're really seeing the Jedi pull off some miraculous stuff because they have unity. There's many of them, so they can kind of help each other bolster their Force different abilities. They each have their kind of like journeys, if you will. Especially like the Padawan Bel Zettifar. He has a great journey in this book. And there's also a lot of tragedies in this book. So yeah, I mean, I don't want to give out anything more than that. I'm keeping it spoiler free because the book isn't out until June
Yep.
29th later this month. But it's definitely, if you're a fan of the High Republic, you guys are gonna absolutely love this one. I absolutely love this one. And there's also going to be 2 more books coming out kind of soon. We have the Race to Crash Point Tower, which is the middle grade novel that comes out on the 29th as well, same day as Rising Storm. And then later next month, we have Out of the Shadows, written by Justina Ireland. And that one comes out. That's going to be more of like the young adult one. Race to Crash Point Tower, by the way, is written by Jose Older, Daniel Jose Older.
Oh, nice.
So,
Okay.
yeah.
Now, Chris, I have a question for you when it comes to this High Republic stuff. Now, is it too early to tell? Are there any type of implications potentially of this could any of these characters potentially be in the Acolyte, or is it just too early to tell when it comes to the book so far?
That's a good question.
Well, there are certainly certain characters because, this is 200 years before the events of the Phantom Menace. So, obviously, most humans, unless they find like some kind of like rejuvenation type of potion or something, probably all the human characters will probably
Oh, yeah, that's
die.
true.
But we have some characters like Jarl Poof and some other characters that I don't want to slip because they just got mentioned in this book first, so I don't want to. But like certain alien characters for sure will transfer over. Obviously, Yoda is a big deal in this whole era of Star Wars, so I don't think we'll see him in the Acolyte, but they'll at least be around. That's the thing. This is 200 years before the events of the Phantom Menace, so they could build out this era so far. Like they could write a book and then do a book like 50 years in the future, and then another 50 years in the future. What I really like about this era is because when they first announced it, it was going to be 200 years before the Phantom Menace. I was like, oh wow, that's not far enough. Like I thought, hey, maybe 500 to 600 would be good. But the cool thing is, I think they're really like, and that's what the title is, the High Republic. They're showing us the absolute pinnacle of society in the galaxy, and we're already starting to see in some of these books the slow decline, some certain decisions that are being made in the Senate, some certain decisions that just the Jedi themselves are thinking about. So you're already seeing like the repercussions and the foreshadowing coming. So I think this is just going to make the prequels like even more tragic. When the High Republic is said and done, they're going to have that nice through line where it's like, okay, you can trace us all the way back to this certain event, and now we're going to see this crumbling down.
Now, I do have a prediction when it comes to the High Republic. I think toward the ends of it, or whenever we get to the Acolyte, I'm not sure if I think that's in 23. But when we get to the Acolyte, I think there's a decent chance we're going to get Darth Plagueis in, like, sure, he's name dropped in Revenge of the Sith, but I think there's a chance we're going to get him either in book form, or maybe he'll just be the master in the Acolyte series. Because You
Yeah.
know, who's to say that Palpatine was
Yeah.
his only student? Like, and really in canon, I mean, from what I know, anyways, at the moment, like, we really don't know the species of Darth Plagueis. So, like, he could be whatever species, like, that could live
Right.
a long time. So he could potentially be coming up in a High Republic book, maybe toward the end of it, like when it gets more toward the Acolyte or something. But I think
Yeah.
there's a decent chance we get him in
Hmm.
some way, shape, or form.
Yeah. Yeah. So just for you guys to realize, the High Republic is set up in 3 phases, and we've already got through wave one of phase one, or wave one of phase one. Yeah. So we have wave two coming out. So I'm not even sure like how many waves are going to be in one phase. So this could
Right.
potentially go on for at least like maybe 5 to 6 years at least. And what's to say they might not have phase four, phase five. So we're already seeing wave two. They're introducing different mediums, right? They're introducing things like a manga, which is the Edge of Balance, which they haven't had like a canonical manga come out, so that's really exciting. They're also going to have
Hmm.
an audiobook coming out, written by Cavan Scott, the same guy that wrote this book that I just talked about, The Rising Storm. Um, so it's pretty cool because they start out with just comics and just books, and now we're already seeing just wave two. They're already branching out to other mediums. I think phase two, they could maybe have like a fully fledged AAA video game, and then maybe phase three is when they bring in the Acolyte and have that live action series, and maybe have an animated series, because it seems like they're just putting in so
Right.
much more content. They're gonna have 2 additional comics coming out on top of the 2 that are already coming out this fall. So they're just ramping up, ramping up, ramping up, and it's just a lot of fun to see the crossover, seeing how many of these characters are kind of going back and forth in different properties. Like one author, what I really find amazing is that the authors are able to take care of the characters and hand them off to one another without like totally screwing up their storylines. Granted, it's only been like 4 books at this point that I've read, but still, it's impressive to see that they're able to tell like, oh, this person's over there while this is going on. Then we pick up with them in the comic, and then we read the book and we realize where they're going from there. So it's really cool, um, kind of storytelling that we haven't really gotten to this degree at all in Star Wars. So very good on the publishing front. If you're a book fan, definitely give it a shot. And with that, I'm going to get into my little bit of a housekeeping. So here on the channel, this week I have uploaded a couple videos. I've uploaded my review for The Rising Storm. I just previewed that. And I also have my big thing we're going to talk about today, which is my review of War of the Bounty Hunters issue #1. But before we get into that, just so you know, everybody that's watching live or anybody that's watching after the fact, this show is actually part of a podcast in any format. You can go on Apple Podcasts, you can go on Spotify, you can go on Google Podcasts. We always record the show every Friday around 9 o'clock Eastern time, and I do have it released by about wee early hours of the morning, 12 a.m., whatever it rolls out to different platforms on that following Monday. So we will be talking about the Bounty Hunter arc as well as the Bad Batch later on in this episode. So lots of things to look forward to. But yeah, we're going to talk a little bit about the War of the Bounty Hunters, issue #1. So spoilers for anybody that does not want to have this revealed to them, because this is a pretty big deal. There's a big character that shows up that I don't think a lot of us even realized was going to happen first in a comic book. But here we go. So I'm going to just recap it real quick for you guys. So last week, me and Milton, we did the whole preview for War of the Bounty Hunters for the month of May. They had all the prelude comics that were building up to this first issue that we're going to talk about tonight. So last we left off, basically to give you the long story short, Boba Fett has lost the bounty for Boba Fett. He was on his way to Jabba's palace, after the events of Empire Strikes Back, and Han Solo started literally melting. He's taking too long to get him there, and this is an experimental way to hold somebody in stasis. So he has to bring him to Nar Shaddaa. He brings him to this old doctor he knows, and the doctor will not do this for him, this task to stabilize him, unless he goes and does him a favor. His favor is to go kill this person that has wronged him. So he enters this arena where the person resides as a champion. He enters his name as Django, as a different kind of alias, right? And he paints his armor black. He defeats this person, comes back, and yeah, he's gone. Han Solo's gone. After all that, after all those tournaments he won, all that, he's gone, and that's where the issue ends. So this issue really picks up right with that. We have Boba Fett continuing to search. He's on Arshada. He gets somebody to try to kill him. He realizes, oh man, I have a bounty on me. And then as he's going to Slave 1, that's when Zuckuss and 4LM come across him and say, hey, we need to bring you in. And he basically has a battle with them, and it's really gory, really awesome, because he kicks Zuckuss off the building and then continues to like slash off 4LM's head. And he uses his head, obviously he's a droid, plugs it into Slave 1 and finds out all the details. Like, yeah, Jabba has a hit on you. It's not on Han. There's actually a hit on you that's worth more money. So he goes to Tatooine, where Jabba is gone. He talks, of course, to Bib Fortuna, which we've been seeing a lot of recently, apparently, with Bad Batch, which is kind of cool. He talks to Bib Fortuna, who basically tells him that Jabba got an invite from a certain organization. And this is the big reveal here. The organization that has Han Solo is none other than Crimson Dawn from Solo: A Star Wars Story. And we find out later on that this person that's in charge is none other than Qi'ra, Han's old flame from Solo: A Star Wars Story. And it's very chilling because she, in the last couple panels of this issue, is at her base that they're going to have the party to invite all these higher up people to basically come back with the Crimson Dawn. She's staring at Han Solo and Carbonite. And it's just like, she says something along the lines of, you always wanted to save me, and this time you did, or something to that degree. And Boba Fett knows that she's the one that has it. She knows that he knows her location because he got the invite to her location, but she's also ready for him. So now we have Boba Fett that is gunning for Qi'ra, that is also bringing up the Crimson Dawn, who, by the way, have been out of the picture for years. And Jabba, in the one scene he's a part of a Hutt council, he doesn't know if he should take this invite seriously because, like he says, the Crimson Dawn has been gone for years. The last time that he was there, basically he's mentioning he as if he was referring to Darth Maul. He said, since he hasn't been around, we assume he is dead. And if somebody was able to usurp his power and dethrone him, that person must be equally powerful. So we're going to take this plea seriously and this invite, and we're going to go there. So Jabba's going there. We got the Empire that is interested in Han Solo because we know from the last issue of Darth Vader that Darth Vader wants Han Solo to lure Luke. Obviously, the Rebellion wants Han because he's a really good general, but he's also the love interest of Leia and a really good friend of Luke. And Dr. Aphra also received the invite from Domina Tag. So you have all these different entities, and Kira's main objective is to basically have the bargaining chip. And it just so happens that Han Solo is connected to everything across the galaxy. So if she can hold that bargaining chip to all these different criminal enterprises, she could actually make Crimson Dawn legitimate again and be a huge power in the galaxy. And this really has humongous repercussions for the entire Star Wars universe. Again, this is part of a 34 issue. If you want to collect every single little storyline, it's going to be 34 issues, including the preludes we talked about last week, but you can get away with just reading the 5-issue miniseries that'll go through October. But man, oh man, guys, as I flipped that page and I seen her reveal, I just kind of yelled in my car at the time. I was like, holy crap, it's so unprecedented. They're bringing in this character. People have been screaming for Make Solo 2 happen for years now, and it just happened like a couple weeks ago. And here we have Qi'ra, which is a main proponent of all of that, which really bodes well for her in being in some shape or fashion in more Star Wars. Well, I'm going to throw it over to, you want to say something, Milton? I mean, both of you want to say something.
Yeah, go ahead, Milton. I talked for a while there earlier. Go ahead, Milton.
Right. No, I mean, look, it's no secret. Like, so Chris, you're the comic book person out of the group. But when you told me about the story last week and even this week, when you sent us that I guess little picture of what you were reading, like, I legit, because I'm thinking, I thought she would have been dead at this point. Like, it's because this is again around Empire and then Return of the Jedi era. I'm thinking, well, where has Qi'ra been? I'm curious to see, do you think, and this probably be a Q&A for Chris at this point, Chris, do you think that with the comics being fleshed out in the next how many issues, you said 34 or so, will we get to see some type of like flashback of Qi'ra and where she's been? Because it's been, at least had it been, almost 20 years since she's dealt with Han Solo, right?
Yeah, it's been at least a decade. It's been a long time.
At least, because the last time we saw her, she was going to be working closely with Darth Maul, and Crimson Dawn was still at the height of their power. Now we know, spoiler alert, Obi-Wan takes out Darth Maul, 5 or 4 years before New Hope. So I wonder what she's been doing like during that point. Like I'm curious because she had to have lost her power. Crimson Dawn really just fell apart. How's she trying to build it up? Because I feel like she should have been, I think to normal fans, she should have been a character that we all should have embraced. I think because I liked her in the films. I thought she was a really
Oh
good
yeah,
character. So I
yeah.
really feel like we should have gotten more of her, especially in live action or even in animation. So again, what are your thoughts about them fleshing her character out more and showing her backstory of where she's been since the fall of Darth Maul?
Yeah, so great question because I think that's what's on a lot of people's minds, right? Is what's the future? What's the past with this character? It's like, okay, if we're introducing the character now, does that crush any hopes that we'll get any like Solo 2 series with her? Because now it seems like the way she approached Han, the dialogue wouldn't match up because it might be like the first time she's seen him since she left him in that first Solo movie. But I think at the very least, as far as her own personal backstory, comics a lot of the times will show the previous history of a character, um, but here's the thing, right? Do they want to show that in a comic book, or do they want to show that in live action? Because I mean, one of my first thoughts of seeing her is I really hope that they don't go through so much trouble and so much work with bringing this film character back to only kill her off in the comic. I'm standing my foot on the ground, standing my foot in the ground firmly, and saying she's going to be in the Book of Boba Fett to some degree because now she's got the history of Boba Fett already. Boba Fett's gunning for her, and of course anybody that is targeted by Boba Fett doesn't really have great of a chance of living, but
Right.
I think it could really add a lot to the overall story of the Book of Boba Fett if she's actually the one that is like the nemesis to Boba Fett and like
Yeah.
challenging his throne. And because the Hutts, there's a huge power vacuum with Jabba the Hutt gone. So what other crime syndicates are out there to try to fill in that void? I mean, you got Black Sun. Maybe we'll see Prince Zizor. Actually, I thought he was going to be the big reveal because I had heard there was going to be a big reveal. I was like, oh, it's going to be Prince Zizor, but I was like, oh, it could be Qi'ra. I don't know. There was a rumor going around a long time ago. It could have been Qi'ra. I forgot who called that one out. But anyway, so I think there's a room for Crimson Dawn to
Mhm.
thrive post Return of the Jedi. I would love to see that happen.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, here's the thing: it's not like, look, the timeline that we've seen, or that we're going to see in Book of Boba Fett, is what, 5 years after Return of the
Mm-hmm.
Jedi. It's the same as Mandalorian. So Kira is still fairly young. She's what, got to
Yeah.
be in her 40s,
Yep.
early 40s, whatever. So they can age up Amelia Clark if they really
Easily.
need to. I mean, it ain't that hard. It's called makeup and CGI,
Yeah.
and it's believable. So I really feel like if they can make a digital Luke and DH him, and Marvel's got the technology to do it with older characters to make him young, you can age someone up. I mean, they did it with Peggy Carter in, I think, Civil War.
Mm-hmm.
So um, again, she'll be in her 40 ishes, so like you can make that work. So it'd be nice to see Amelia Clark show up in the Book of Boba Fett or any type of like live action during that particular decade or time period of Star Wars. Like I said, we all know Luke's still running around. Han Solo in the Rebellion or the New
Yep.
Republic, I guess they're still running around. Again, will we get a young Harrison Ford? Probably not. I mean, you can take Alden Ehrenreich
Yeah.
and again use CGI and makeup to make him look like Harrison Ford of that time. Or I'm sure there's an actor out there that's got those similar features. Let's be real here. So we can make this work because my belief can be I will believe that's Harrison Ford, whatever actor they put out there, in the sense of it's Han Solo. I would like to see that interaction because it'd be interesting to see how Leia handles knowing that Han
Oh.
was messed up, had a girl before her
Yeah.
that was like the love of his life at that time. So it'd be interesting, but I really think after what you've told us about the comic, and I'm sure Ben will get into this too. After what you've told us about this comic, it's nice to see that Star Wars does a really good job at building upon these characters that we've seen in movies and games, books. Again, it's nice to get those little morsels and just think about what the possibilities can be within the universe of Star Wars through any medium that they choose.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Ben.
Well, that's the podcast. You guys took all my points for Qi'ra, but no, I definitely think my point I was going to make earlier is I think I think it's almost a lock that she's going to be in the Book of Boba Fett. I really do.
Hmm.
I was thinking about it as soon as you sent us that panel, and especially now that, I mean, you were just saying this ends in October. Okay, perfect time. End the series in October with whatever happening. Maybe, her and the Crimson Dawn lose. However, they have a defeat without getting killed. Maybe escaping or something.
Yep.
And then you have it be right around that time period, right when Jabba's sail barge blowing up. You have all that kind of stuff going on in
Uh-huh.
the comics potentially, and then boom, fast forward 5 years to Book of Boba Fett. Maybe now, okay. So think about it this way: the Empire's defeated. They're just still trying to make a comeback, and then you have Boba Fett and Fennec Shand go and shoot up the joint at Jabba's palace, and now they're. I really think just from that little clip from the end of Mando, I really think that was the creators there at Lucasfilm really basically telling us, like, hey, Jabba was the peak crime lord at the time when he got killed, so this is Boba Fett basically saying, I'm the new Jabba the Hutt now. I'm the new
Yep.
top crime dog in the galaxy. So
Yep.
I think that's all going to connect. And I think we were theorizing it back when Mando was on. Remember, we were talking about it. We were saying maybe the Book of Boba Fett, it's going to be Boba Fett versus the other crime syndicates that wanted power. And I really think our potential enemy crime syndicate is going to be Emilia Clarke, Qi'ra, leading the Crimson Dawn versus Boba and Fennec Shand, which should be pretty interesting. Just because, someone has to die, and I don't think it's going to end up being Boba. So you have that, and then also this, as we said, this almost puts the Solo series in carbonite, just because it's almost implying like she hasn't seen Han ever since she last saw him. So maybe we're gonna get our kind of quote unquote Solo series. Maybe maybe Han and Chewie show up in this series. Maybe you have Han, Chewie, doing something or another. And maybe they run into this whole thing like, oh man, we have all of our enemies here. Boba Fett, Qi'ra, like you have all these things. Maybe it's going to be Alden and Jonas back playing Han and Chewie. And I think that's our potential big reveal of the Book of Boba. Like this is a, prediction on whatever, June 4th. But I think there's a decent chance that we're going to have this series. Maybe Boba deals with some small crime lord initially in the first couple episodes, depending on, I don't even know how many episodes the show is. Maybe Boba deals with a small crime syndicate. Then he finds out about the Crimson Dawn, deals with Qi'ra, and maybe toward the end of the series, end of this first season anyways, maybe Qi'ra's like, going back, basically her and the Crimson Dawn are kind of licking their wounds, and they run into Alden and Han, or Alden and as Han, and then Chewie. Maybe she runs into both of them, and maybe that's kind of our big Luke Skywalker or Darksaber reveal. Like maybe that's our big cliffhanger for the Book of Boba, and then boom, think about all the good PR we're gonna have. Like, oh my gosh, Han and Chewie, our Solo series, blah blah blah. Because now we're getting Han, Chewie, and Qi'ra all back. So like, I really think, the Solo series just got blended straight into the Book of Boba Fett.
It sounds very, very likely. Real quick before I forget, because you mentioned a lot about the Bib Fortuna and the Boba Fett kind of taking his throne. This issue clearly makes the point that Boba Fett really hates Bib Fortuna even back then. Bib Fortuna approaches him and he's like, "There's a bounty on your head," and Boba Fett's basically like, "Yeah," like screaming at him, like, "Get it off my head! Where's Jabba?" He basically point blank shoots one Gamorrean and uses the flamethrower on the other one right in front of Bib Fortuna. And he is like, he has him at gunpoint. Like, Bib is like super afraid. He's very scared. And he gives him the message to Jabba. And then after the message is like done playing, like this is outside of the great door of Jabba's palace. The great door opens and it's like all those scum, the freaking guys, all the alien, the mismatched
Yeah.
dudes like walk out because Bib is basically commanding them. And Boba says like some of the most badass stuff. He's basically just saying like, "Hey, look, like you might kill me, but I'm gonna kill a lot of you before you kill me. So is it really worth chance of you dying to listen to this scumbag over here, Bib Fortuna? Who do you really want to follow this guy?" Like he straight up like asks him, he's like, "Do you really want to follow this guy?
Mhm.
Just think about it." And they actually listen to Boba Fett. They're like, they put their weapons down. They're just like, "Oh crap!" Like Boba Fett has like his own army right now, kind of thing. Or at least
That's great.
they're not trying to kill him at the moment. So it's like you already can kind of see the wheels turning. Like, oh, Boba Fett actually might have some sort of leadership ability to actually pull this off post Return of the Jedi.
Well, I think post Return of the Jedi, I think there's a chance he's going to really lead by like more action, like hey, if you don't follow me as well, I'm going to just like shoot up the place. Because think about it, like maybe he potentially has like these leadership qualities right now, but this is before he gets thrown into the Sarlacc. This is before he gets like his armor getting worn around by Cobb Vanth. This is before all this stuff that's happened to him. So maybe maybe he really wants to make. Ooh, actually, here's another theory for you guys. What do you think about this? What if by the end of this book series, scrap my whole idea of the Crimson Dawn not being very powerful? What if they are the most powerful crime syndicate? And what if you go into it with Boba basically saying, like in the first episode, like, hey, I need to take out the Crimson Dawn to like solidify my power. Boom. And they go right into it.
That's
That'd
one
be
heck
very
of a way to
interesting.
get viewers. Oh, go
Yeah.
first.
I would say that'd be one hell of a swerve, to make them think that the Crimson Dawn has been down this whole time. I mean, again, that'd be kind of like the first or the final order. Like what's going on with them? Like them sitting in the cut, just waiting around, just
Yep.
watching everything, and then they got their power conciliated. Like again, it'd be interesting theory. I mean, I think that it'd be I can see it happening, but then I think Star Wars is smart enough to say, hey, like, let's just give the people what they want when it comes to actual like primary like people that we want to focus on in this gangster underworld type. I mean, again,
Yeah.
it'd be interesting, but I don't know. I don't know if Star Wars would have the testicular fortitude to go that route.
Yeah, I don't know either. Just because, as I said before I started like talking about all this, I really think the problem. I think the number one issue going into the Book of Boba Fett with the Crimson Dawn and Qi'ra potentially is someone has to walk out of that debt, or someone has to die in that show, because it's like a gangster type show. So you're gonna have characters dying. And I don't see Boba dying just because, that's like killing Chewbacca or whoever, like Darth Vader, C-3PO. Like he's an iconic character, so I don't see him dying. But then again, there's no chance. I don't think they could kill Qi'ra just because the fans have been clamoring so hard for Solo 2 or a Solo series on Disney Plus. I mean, I've been one of those fans. Like, so it's hard. It's really hard to say if they would actually do that. And then, just to bounce off that, to ask you, Chris, since you have kept up with like all the comics and books and everything, is there anything currently in canon right now to potentially point to when did Han and Leia have their issues? Like, could they potentially have had issues around this time period to maybe have Han off like with Qi'ra at all, or does that happen further down the line?
You know what? They mentioned all that stuff in Bloodline, and Bloodline takes place about 5 years before The Force Awakens, but between Bloodlines and last shot, which takes place 2 years after, there's like a 15-year gap where it's just nothing.
Mm,
Literally, like they left the room wide open for anything to happen in like the Mandalorian verse. Like
yeah.
they could have been like, oh yeah, they're having problems, and he goes back because we know in Force Awakens he goes back to his the Force roots, or not the smuggling
Smuggling.
roots.
Yeah. See, that's what I was thinking. Maybe we get Han and Qi'ra in this series because maybe as we talked about before, I really think a lot of these shows that like the Mandoverse is going to be our new Clone Wars for the sequel trilogy. They're going to really try to strengthen the sequel
Mm-hmm.
trilogy as much as possible. And I think that's a decent chance because maybe that could potentially be their justification as to why Han isn't with everybody. Like, sure, Han literally says, like, he was off smuggling and this and that in The Force Awakens, etc., blah, blah, blah. But for a lot of fans, I feel like that, talking with a lot of people, I feel like that wasn't what they were thinking, like the direction Han would go, Han, Leia, and Luke. So maybe this is kind of their way to justify it. Like, hey, we can justify that by giving you your Solo and Qi'ra team up, basically.
Hmm. Could be. Could be. So any last words on Qi'ra appearing? Because it's huge. It's seismic. There wasn't any Star Wars news, but man, this thing was enough to whet everybody's appetite for just excitement overall with the way things are going in Star Wars.
I think it's a great thing, and I'm really excited for the next issue.
Heck yeah, heck yeah. We got Bounty Hunters issue number whatever coming out next week, and that's where the crossover kind of you'll see characters melding into different books because we have Chewbacca going after Bylor Valance and Dengar. There's going to be a fist fight in the streets of Nar Shaddaa. And by the way, I put this out on Twitter. I responded to Luke Ross, who is the artist on War of the Bounty Hunters. I was like, when the heck are we going to get Nar Shaddaa on screen? Seriously, I got to see that place. It is like the Las Vegas of the Star Wars universe, and we
Right.
have yet to see it in live action or even in animated. Like we're gonna talk about Bad Batch later and about another awesome location they introduced. It's like, somebody just give us Nar Shaddaa already. The place is awesome.
You know, you know what though was funny about that? Like there's so many planets that we know that are canon that we still haven't even seen in a movie, or even in a live show. Like, I mean, again, I'll always clamor for this planet until anyone does it. Cato Nimordia. I need to
Yep.
see that. Now, I don't know if
Wait, it
someone
was in
told me
Revenge
that
of the
was.
Sith.
I was about to say, was Cato
Oh,
Nimordia whenever who's that
Plo
Jedi
Koon.
who died?
Plo Koon.
Plo
Um,
Koon.
was
Yep.
was that Cato Nimordia? Because I keep
Yeah.
being told it was.
Yep.
Now I know we got a glimpse of it, but I need like a full scale, just like Felucia, with when old girl got killed, that blue Jedi, I forget her name. Like, we need to see these planets.
Al
Like, I'm sorry,
Secura.
I want to see. Yeah, yep. I need to see them fleshed out because again, what George Lucas, and I just gonna be a negative rant a little bit. What George Lucas gave us with Coruscant, with Naboo, with oh my God, Geonosis, like all those planets in general, like he gave us something fresh and new in the prequels. This is one of my biggest gripes with the sequel trilogy. There's nothing new except for Exegol
Crate was
and
pretty cool.
Crate, which is kind of a knockoff to Hoth, but whatever.
The
And then
music was
and
great.
your favorite planet, favorite scene, Canto Bight.
Oh,
So yeah, like we got a couple things, but Taco Donna was pretty much Yavin 4.
Endor or Yavin 4.
And,
Yeah.
yeah, pretty much. You know what I'm saying? Or like even Endor. So that's why you're right, Chris. I agree with you on let's see Nar Shaddaa, let's see those planets. Like again, they be fire if we see those things because that just helps elevate, I think, my excitement for the product.
well, Milton, I actually to tie into your like all like the little details about like what George Lucas was putting into those movies and things that he did. I saw this is a really quick little extra, a bonus my week in Star Wars. It was a little just like 2-minute clip I saw on YouTube. Some just small YouTube channel threw it up, and they were breaking it down, and they were like, look at this. This is so interesting how it potentially kind of ties into the Bad Batch of like the clone troopers turning into stormtroopers. This guy put up a slow-mo of the scene on Utapau when Order 66 was executed, like right after Obi-Wan, gets knocked off that creature into the water or whatever. When they're searching for Obi-Wan, you can literally see in the background the clone troopers are already, their order was to kill the Jedi, but they're also already arresting the Utapau citizens.
Oh, yeah.
Like in the background, I never even noticed that. I never noticed that before. And that little YouTube video popped up, and I was like, what in the heck? I never saw that. And it's like little details like that it's just so cool seeing those type of things.
Yeah.
I mean, it's always neat.
Yeah.
Yeah, so, going off the jumping point of this huge reveal, as the title of this podcast episode, the greatest reveals in Star Wars comics. So I've written down a couple here. I just want to kind of go through throughout the years of the Star Wars comics and current continuity, meaning everything 2015 or after. I know, guys, there's tons of awesome Legends stuff, but as you guys probably know, I don't really read the Legends. It's just because I jumped on board way later, so I haven't really had time to go back because I'm so busy with the canon stuff. But anyway, I'll start with one that I kind of mentioned before, the High Republic. High Republic, the comics written by Kevin Scott. Yes, I know I've mentioned that name many times because that guy from the UK has got like unlimited energy. Apparently, he writes like everything these days, and I wish I had that ability. But anyway, his comic, he introduces the Hutt, basically a Hutt army. Hutts with Rancors as pets and like battle armor, a Hutt on like a hover sled with armor named Moraga the Hutt. Really surprising moment because they're on Sedri Minor. They're dealing with the Drengir, who are these like sentient plant creatures that have come back after like hundreds of years. They used to be back with the Sith and used to be like the enemies of the Sith. And somehow somebody messed up and kind of awoken them from their long slumber. And they're on this planet. And apparently this big jerk alien guy basically paid protection money to the Hutts, even though it's in Republic space. So the Republic has gone to investigate what's going on. And as they're dealing with the Drengir, they think they're finally ahead. And the Jedi Marshal, Avar Kriss, the female Jedi that's like got the blonde hair and is on the cover of a lot of the comics and all, she's just getting done with negotiating with this jerk. And the next panel, it's when, oh, what's that up there? Oh, it's the freaking Hutt army. Like, this came out of nowhere, and you see these guys just popping up, and it's really cool. So that was a huge surprising moment because like I've always wanted to see Hutts more than Jabba. Like Jabba's cool. He's like a mafia gangster. That's what he was based off of. But we know that there's not just Hutts as mafia people. Like this Hutt is leading the charge. You have other Hutts throughout Star Wars, like Gracchus the Hutt, who is in the flagship comics that was stealing lightsabers and had a lightsaber collection after the events of Order 66, a ripped Hutt with like mechanical legs. So I am in general liking what Star Wars has continued to do with fleshing out more of the obscure species in the Star Wars timeline and stuff like that. Another one, which I think plays very well into the whole Bad Batch and everything else with Order 66, and this goes back to Charles Soule's run of the Darth Vader comics. There was a moment in the Mon Cala arc where there are Inquisitors that are going after the Jedi, right? This whole story is basically Darth Vader hunting down the Jedi, like something I've always wanted to see. And we're seeing it in these comics, which is awesome. And we have these Jedi cornered. This one Jedi, he was a Padawan. He never finished his training, but he was cornered by 3 Inquisitors on the edge of a platform, basically about to die. And at the end of this certain issue, he whispers, execute Order 66. And these Inquisitor troopers that we didn't know that were actually clone troopers under those helmets turned their weapons and fired on the Inquisitors, which, as we know, used to be previous Jedi. So that was like one of the biggest moments because it was like, holy crap, like these guys were actually clones the whole time, and they're actually able to follow the Order 66 order and take out their own leaders. Like, that was freaking insane. I know you guys probably seen that one, right?
Yep. That's crazy. Like seeing that, like literally when I saw that, it just made me think of the Bad Batch. Like, how is this going to connect potentially to the Bad Batch? Like, this could be a precursor to that. Like, or the Bad Batch, I guess, would be wait, which would be coming? Oh yeah, I guess this would be first. But like, this could be a precursor to the events of like the Bad Batch, and that's literally what that made me like, instantly think about.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah, because we have the Inquisitor troopers that are in this. We have the same design in Jedi Fallen Order, which is like 5 years after Revenge of the Sith. So I know in the current canon by that time they were actually just normal stormtroopers, just wearing the same armor. But at the
Yeah.
time, it was just a big surprise because it was just like, wait, what? There's clones under that armor. Going forward with another issue that really surprised me here, and this was by far the biggest one that really put comics on the map in the continuity, being like, okay, they're actually pulling really big reveals, and that was. I don't know which issue it was. It might have been like Darth Vader #5 or #6, the 2015 run by Kieran Gillen. Vader is looking after who the heck messed up his plans and destroyed the Death Star. So he puts
I
out
was
Boba
just about to
Fett.
say that one.
Yep.
Uh-huh. He puts out Boba Fett to the task of going out and gathering data to figure this out. And Boba goes to like Mos Eisley and figures this out, or wherever he goes on Tatooine. And when he tells Darth Vader the news, and you guys, watching or hearing this, have probably seen the panels online at some point. It's just like Vader clenching his fist at finding the news that it was his own son, and just like
Yeah.
shattering the glass on his Star Destroyer bridge, just in absolute anguish and frustration that it was like his son was like under his thumb the whole time.
Yeah, like I'll build upon that too. And I mean, I guess I'll go next with this, Chris. But like when that point, because I think I might have discovered that watching one of your videos or something. And because I was thinking like, wow, how did Vader find out who his kid was and if his kid was still alive? And I remember watching that video, and I went back to read the comic on YouTube. It was cool to see like how Vader was trying to figure out who is this Luke Skywalker guy, because didn't they duel at one point? I believe in the comics, and because Luke even says like, you killed my father. He's like, who are you? Like, I don't know
Yep.
who you are. But then he
Yep.
sees his old lightsaber, and he's like, wait a minute, something's not right here. So I think that's when like Boba starts getting involved. But that was those two particular reveals to me stood out because he got to see that one, Vader had no idea that his offspring survived, and then number two, that triggers in my head as a fan of these films and comics. Wait a minute, Vader just learned that Palpatine lied to his face
Mm-hmm.
at the end of Revenge of the Sith. Like, oh wait, yeah, your wife died, but your kid's dead too, and he thought like it was all his fault, and really like, wait, his kid's been alive the whole time. So it's cool to go back and look at the different way you look at the films now, especially Revenge
Yes.
of the Sith,
Yeah.
and how that ended.
Yes.
Um, so seeing those two particular points with canon revealing that was pretty badass. And
Yeah.
I guess my final thing, and again, I think I'm remembering this right. Um, didn't Darth Maul, or excuse me, not Darth Maul, Darth Vader, go back to Tatooine at one point?
Mm-hmm.
And I was like, man, there's no way he would actually do that because how much pain
Yeah.
that planet brought him. And I remember in the old, this is not now Legends, in the old Obi-Wan Kenobi book by I think it was John Jackson Miller.
Yep.
Amazing book.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Great book. I
like
actually read that.
he says at one point in that book that I think Qui-Gon reaches out to Obi-Wan, or maybe it might have been at the end of Revenge of the Sith novelization, where Obi-Wan discovers that Vader's alive and he's worried about Luke, and Qui-Gon says, "Don't worry, he'll never come back here. Like Tatooine is too painful for him. It reminds
Mm-hmm.
him of who he used to be." But to see that Vader actually step foot on that planet again was kind of shocking because I never thought it would happen.
Yeah, and that's exactly what happens. He goes down to that planet to basically figure out what the heck is going on with this pilot. Like, he actually like got over his fear and his disgust of the planet because he knew this was super important to him and he had to figure it out.
Right.
Yeah. Another one that I really enjoyed was the Lando miniseries, which I think is very underrated. This Lando miniseries by Charles Soule, again, one of the biggest, best writers in Star Wars, not just books, but he's also part of the High Republic. He had this series, which is like Lando and Lobot. And at the time, in the beginning of the miniseries, Lobot is like a perfectly normal human, right? He's cracking jokes with Lando. They're going on a job that actually is basically like stealing from the Emperor, and he gets the job where he like actually goes to like one of the Emperor's reliquaries where he has like all these Sith relics and artifacts, and one of them is actually the Mask of Moment, which is this
Yep.
artifact that actually like poisons your mind, and it actually poisons like these two feline species characters that go like absolute mad, and then the royal guards that were guarding this thing were going absolutely mad as well. And unfortunately, by the end of this miniseries, Lobot actually like sacrifices like his mental faculties to basically like save Lando, but in doing so, like his brain basically gets fried.
Hmm.
And so it's like this real tragedy where by the end of this miniseries, you actually get to see like where this character started out and just like where they end up. So you watch Empire Strikes Back after that, and it's just like, damn, this is horrible. And it's really cool is that Charles Soule actually reintroduces Lobot further in the current Star Wars line, which is after the Empire Strikes Back, and they actually go back and they actually get Lobot because they go back to Cloud City and they go there for a few reasons, and while Lando's there, he's like, oh, I have to get somebody, I have to go get my friend, and they actually get Lobot, and Lobot right now is still around, so that's another big mystery. Is like, okay, Lobot is still alive and he's with the rebellion right now. Like, are we gonna see him post Return of the Jedi? I think that would be pretty cool.
Oh yeah, I definitely think so too. Like all of those type of little stories that see, I think those type of stories are the best ones because they strengthen the films or the shows that we already love. But it's kind of like how we talked about with like Mando. You don't have to know who Ahsoka is to enjoy that episode, but since we all do, we all love that episode even more.
Mm-hmm.
And having a story like that with Lobot in it, sure, we all love Empire Strikes Back, of course, but this strengthens that character even more. So like those type of things, even the book Catalyst that takes
Oh
place
yeah.
before Rogue One, that book's
Hmm.
great. And
Yeah, that
again,
one's fire.
that's a book, that strengthens Krennic. It strengthens the Urso family, and so on and so on. Like those type of stories, those are the best in my opinion with canon because they strengthen the properties we already know, and they just make them a lot more interesting in my opinion.
Oh yeah, without a doubt. Yeah, you said Callus, great book that leads into to Rogue One. And when I sat
Yeah.
down and I seen Rogue One for the first time, I was kind of like punching my friend's shoulder, like, "Oh, I know all about Krennic. I already know about Lara Soul
Oh,
or not, all these characters like in the
yep,
first scene." I was like, "Yes, this is great." Um,
yep. That's how I
Another one
was.
that has to do with the Star Wars comics. This is a really recent one, one that's also part of like the current continuity of the Star Wars comics in Empire Strikes Back era. And that's when Luke actually gets a yellow lightsaber. This to me was pretty cool because as we know, he leaves his or doesn't leave it. He literally just loses his blue lightsaber, and through this arc, it's really him getting over that. It's him getting over the fact that
Right.
he doesn't need that blue lightsaber. And he runs into this character that evidently enough was one of the characters that was with Master Bar in that Darth Vader comic series when he like pulls the Order 66. Like he finds that character all grown up now, and she's force sensitive and she's able to instruct Luke upon, look, it's not worth it being a Jedi. I've been running my whole life from these Inquisitors because they know I'm Force sensitive. So you should seriously just stop dwelling in the Force because one day they're going to catch up to you. And then he actually mentions that, like, he's the son of Vader and she literally wants nothing to do with him. But she gives him, like, this one piece of advice, like, okay, if you really want a lightsaber, I know where there's one, and you have to go to this High Republic outpost, and there you go. There's your High Republic tie-in, as they often do with the current Star Wars comics. To go to this place, and he picks up a yellow lightsaber, and then the image and the visage of an old, tortured Grand Inquisitor shows up from Star Wars Rebels, and it was shocking because it's like this tortured being of the Grand Inquisitor at the end of season 1 of Rebels is like, there are things far worse than death, and he like jumps into the lava and kills himself.
Mm-hmm.
So somehow Vader has gotten his soul and basically tortured him forever, like basically like tied into this outpost, and and Luke is like able to defeat him in like combat. It's like a very surreal kind of, is this really real? Is this like is this a vision for Luke kind of thing? But that was really cool seeing something get
Right.
pulled from animation that was just like such a striking image of like this guy just like half in flames, just like kind of pleading with Vader, like how long, like how much longer is my soul going to be trapped here? And Vader's like pretty much like forever, you know. It's like, damn.
Yeah, I think for me, another reveal when it comes to comics, speaking of Luke, were the journals of Obi-Wan Kenobi.
Oh, those are great. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, like that was to me, because again, and what's nice about that, we're getting the Obi-Wan series, so I'm hoping that they take some of that stuff from the comics and put it in the series. Now, I mean, again, like make it something original, clearly, but I want to see Obi-Wan's soft moments in that show, writing down his thoughts about his time as a Jedi, his time with Anakin, and the many losses that he's been through, and his hopes for the future for Luke, and his hope for the future for the Jedi and the Empire, or whatever at that time, whatever how he rephrases it. But it'd be nice to see those soft moments that we saw in the comics with Obi-Wan and how he was reflecting.
Yeah, I really like the interactions between. That was a good pull. I like the interactions between um, Owen Lars and him, and the way that
Yeah.
Owen Lars just treats him like, I don't want you anywhere near Luke. But like you
Yeah.
see Ben, he's going around and he's trying not to use the Force, but if he uses it like very inconspicuously. Like there's a thing going on. One of the issues, I think there's like 3 total stories of like the Hutts like doing a water tax or
Mhm.
something on all the moisture farmers, and like it's obviously not fair. So Obi-Wan's kind of taking it back at the thugs of Jabba, and messing with them, and they're like having no idea what's going on because he's using the Force like all secretly and stuff. But yeah, oh man, there's such great moments. He's fighting Black Kirsantan, who is like this big like bounty hunter Wookiee. He's fighting him, and he's like using like these gadgets, like the Wookiees using all these different kind of weapons on him, and he's just such a badass warrior even in his old age. It's great to see.
Oh yeah, that's a great little series there. Also, the Jango Fett comic was really good.
Oh yeah.
That was really good. Just because it showed like basically Boba's early trainings. But I think like I would say the big reveal from that comic even was like basically Django. He didn't care about the clone troopers. He literally almost viewed them as like droids. Like in the comic, he literally basically says they're just there to use as shields for your blaster fire for your army. Like they're there, and that's pretty much what they're there for. Is just they're to Django, the clones were pretty much just droids.
Mm-hmm.
So it was just, it's cool like seeing a character like that. Again, it strengthens the stuff we saw in Attack of the Clones. Like, he doesn't really care too much about them. Like he says, they'll do their job well, but that's about all whatever. They do their job well and he gets paid, and that's all he cares about. He doesn't care what happens to him. It's not his business.
Yeah.
So it's just cool seeing like little moments like that in the comics.
Dude, Jango Fett, he continues to be one of my favorite characters in all of Star Wars, and it just comes down to the first trailer for Episode 2, Attack of the Clones. I remember sitting in the theater. I don't know what movie I was watching with my mother at the time, but I remember just seeing that image of Anakin like racing by on a swoop bike, and Duel of the Fates is playing, and you see like the Sons of Tatooine and like the Sandcrawler, and it just goes right by. I was like, oh my gosh, this is so cool. And then it showed Jango Fett like in the rain. I was like, who is that guy? It's Boba Fett. And it's like the blue with the silver armor just looks so striking. And ever since that moment, I was like, and then they showed like a preview where it was Slave One just like chasing the Jedi Starfighter of Obi-Wan's through the Geonosis asteroid belt. And I was just like, dude, I'm so down. Like, this guy is one of the coolest characters in Star Wars, and I haven't even seen the movie yet.
Oh yeah, he is. Well, the big thing with Django, like that, those images really stuck out to me. But the one image, it was like a promotional image for that movie. It was the picture of Django standing like in the foreground, and then in the very background, you see just all the clone troopers standing behind him.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
like
Yeah.
that image always stuck out to me for Attack of the Clones, just because it's just so like iconic, I feel. And I just think the cool thing with Django, like don't get me wrong, I love Boba's armor and everything, but I love Django's like chrome armor with the blue, and he has his dual pistols and all that. Like it just, I don't know, it's just something really cool about him. And I mean, gosh, he faces off with Obi-Wan and does pretty well for the most part.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah. See a Mandalorian versus a Jedi, just like they've been talking about in the good old past. There's those Jedi Mandalorian wars.
Yep.
Next one, next mini series here. This one came out or finished last year by another one by Charles Soule. Who would have guessed? He writes all the comics apparently. Him and Kevin Scott. Ben Solo's Turn to the Dark Side and Rise of Kylo Ren. This miniseries is like almost essential to read if you're anything interested in Kylo Ren, because it shows Ben. There's flashbacks to him at the Jedi Temple. It's showing, Snoke and how he's dealing with Snoke as a kid and how he's getting kind of influenced by Snoke. And you see like Luke Skywalker training him and what he's going on with these Padawans that are hunting him down. He doesn't want to kill him, but like he's stuck in a rock and a hard place, and things happen where some of them do die. And then his actual turn was, I thought it was pretty convincing the way it was turned, because he's just like, as we see him in the movies, he's so torn between the light and the dark, and it's like certain absolute circumstances happen that just cause him to give into the dark side. And it was just like, wow, to actually see something this important told in a comic again. Most of the people just like disregard comics because they're just, they're the funny things that happen and then funny things happen in comics. But no, sometimes there's some seriously serious things happening in these comic books.
Oh yeah, I thought that was one of the most talked about comics at the time when it came out, because that came out a couple of years ago.
Yeah, it finished out in 2020. So yeah, it's about a year ago it finished, I think. Yeah.
Yeah, or well, I was saying like whenever it started.
Oh yeah.
Whenever it initially started, there was so much talk about it, just because, for what have you about the sequel trilogy, Kylo Ren was one of the stronger parts of it, in my opinion, and his character, is beloved by so many people. So I feel like that comic was talked about a lot. Like you always saw it on the trending section on social media when the new issues came out, and I thought, it's a it's like you said, it's a good supplemental piece when it comes to people who are fans of Ben Solo.
Yeah, I mean, you get to see Lor Santeca, Ben Solo as a kid, and Luke Skywalker going on journeys, going to High Republic outposts, and facing fearsome Knights of Ren. Like, they actually make the Knights of Ren formidable opponents in these stories, whereas in the movies, well, we've seen what happened with them in the movies.
Listen, look, legit, I was thinking about this just the other day, how a big letdown that was. And like I said, that comic really made the Knights of Ren, like, they made them credible compared to what we got in the movies. Like, you're absolutely right. I mean, again, I wish, because I remember just the hype around who the Knights of Ren were when The Force Awakens was announced. Like, everyone was like, oh my God, the Knights of Ren are these Jedi hunters or dark side users. They weren't even Sith, or they're like these badass martial artists mixed with like kung fu Jedi stuff. Because I remember whenever the guys from the raid, those actors, I thought they were going to be the Knights of the Ren. I was like, oh yeah, done.
Yeah,
like they're going to be wrecking people. Like Kylo Ren's that guy. Like he's going to be wrecking these people. He don't need an army. He's got these 5 other guys with him. Nope. They just stare at the camera. You get some wide shots, you get some Dutch tilt shots. It's like, okay, like that's it. It's like, all right, like that's it.
Well, Milton, you know what it is? It's, as Spaceballs once said, merchandising.
You know what? Great point. You're not wrong on that. And
it's what it is. And Star Wars. Yeah. See, that's my thing. Don't get me wrong. I 100% agree with all the points you just made. But Star Wars does have a pattern of doing that, because even look at the original trilogy. Look how Boba Fett and all the bounty hunters, they were just standing there on the Star Destroyer. At least Boba Fett got into Slave One and everything.
Mhm.
But all these cool characters, like Star Wars has a pattern of having really cool characters do nothing at all. And the Knights of Ren just add to it. And even look at for the Rise of Skywalker, look at the Sith troopers. Look how
Oh
cool those
yeah.
Sith troopers looked. And they really didn't do anything. Like they were just kind of just there, just
Yeah. I mean,
Star Wars does that pattern.
yeah,
But
the biggest one has to be Phasma
yeah,
of most recent,
Yeah.
yeah,
because Phasma. I mean, again, everybody was like, "Oh wait, we never seen a trooper built like that." In the sense of like the armor, we assumed she was like the elite, trooper. Because we didn't know who Death Troopers were yet,
that was
but
the
like
height of Game of Thrones too for Gwendolyn
yeah,
Yeah.
Christie.
Game of
So
Gwendolyn Christie. Everyone loved her as a person and as her character in that show. So we all assumed, oh, she's gonna be like so badass where Kylo Ren might challenge her. We never thought anything about Hux. I mean, we knew Hux was a threat, but not like that. We thought Phasma would be that person, but she's like, all right, let's dump her in the trash compactor, and then let's have Finn knock her off a cliff.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like, I mean, I don't know. You're right on that, Ben. Absolutely.
yep, that's what it is. Merchandising.
Yeah. And one final one here. It came out a couple weeks ago. I kind of flipped out when I sent you guys a screenshot of this one, and it's it's in the latest Darth Vader issue, with Exegol, and Darth Vader, he goes to Exegol. He basically, this whole arc is Palpatine leaves Vader for dead on Mustafar to give him a lesson, to teach him a lesson of respect. And Vader goes through like these trials on Mustafar where like he's missing an arm, he's missing a leg. He has to put himself back together with super battle droid parts that were there from Revenge of the Sith. And then he gets hunted by these droid pirates. And then if that's not enough, the Emperor personally sends out his Sith assassin Ochi of Bassoon, a big connection to the
Love
Rise
it.
of Skywalker, sends him there. Vader, this guy steals the lightsaber from Vader. Vader ends up like defeating him even without his own lightsaber. Goes into the cave and
But he's
basically
not allowed to use the Force either.
he's not allowed to use the Force. That's a good point. He goes into the cave, and this is going to be a delete. This was a deleted scene in the movie. It's the Eye of Webbish Bog, which is this very weird creature that like comes out from underneath the lava and challenges like his like loyalty to the Emperor or whatever and all this stuff. And he passes that test, and he gains the Sith Wayfinder, and he follows that. He goes to Exegol, but before he gets there, he battles like the big creature-esque thing from Solo a Star Wars story, the Super Verminoth thing. And he basically like tames this creature for himself, lands on Exegol, and it's at the same place where the Rise of Skywalker is, because then Emperor's already been there. The Emperor's just like waiting for him. And you see the power of the Emperor like summoning these other creatures that are like hundreds of feet tall, like these crab things going against the Super Verminoth that Vader is riding like a badass. This huge ass battle. Vader somehow like manages to survive that. He walks into the same place that Rey and Kylo Ren go in the Rise of Skywalker. As he's walking, Emperor's giving him like a big monologue and stuff as he's walking through there, and of course he walks by like tanks of Snokes. He walks by a freaking hand in a tank, and that like set off the internet like crazy. Like people were
Yeah.
like doing all these memes and stuff with the hand floating. I mean, it's obvious like that's probably Luke's hand, but there's really nothing that we gain to know what it's being used for. So people are coming up with tons of theories even to today. It's been a couple weeks, like a month or so since that came out. Different things. Oh, is that how they made Snoke with the Vader's hand, or with Luke's hand, or is that how he made the father of Rey with the clone of Luke's hand, or something like that? So that was a huge surprise, is seeing that stuff, prior to even Return of the Jedi, that stuff already being made, and that's not even all of it. That's not even all of it, because as they continue through, you see the armada of the Star Destroyers already being built with the hyper like Death Star tech in the bottom of the Star Destroyer's hull. And if that's not even enough, they get to the end of this walkway, and he goes into this big building, and there's a gigantic kyber crystal like that's basically a mountain, and that's where they're farming like all these crystals to go into the Star Destroyer, and at that point the Emperor is basically like, because Vader wanted to kill the Emperor up to that point. Like Vader was dead set on killing the Emperor, but when he sees this kind of power, the Emperor's like, the only way you'll ever be able to harness this power is by, teaming up with me, basically, because I can give you the access to that power, essentially. And that's when Vader becomes subservient to the Emperor once again. But that issue itself had like so many reveals, like left and right, between the hand, between the clones of Snoke, between the Star Destroyers, between this gigantic Kyber crystal mountain. It was just like, I finished that issue and I was like, my jaw was just like dropped, like, wow, they just totally added so much stuff that helps out Rise of Skywalker in that one issue.
Well, Chris, the cool thing with that is, so with the hand, like you said, I saw a lot of people talking about the hand, and that kind of connects back to, I'm not sure if you guys remember, around the time when The Force Awakens came out, and right shortly after The Force Awakens, before The Last Jedi, there was a lot of rumblings out there coming from like people around JJ, like there was a lot of different rumblings from different pretty solid people out there reporting that JJ's first initial pitch for The Force Awakens was he wanted Luke's hand to be floating in space holding on to the lightsaber.
Yep,
I heard that.
And so it's kind of cool, like seeing them like getting the whole hand aspect, more back into canon. Like, like you said, potentially it could be like the beginning of Snoke.
Mm-hmm. Well, I remember Mark Hamill mentioned something about that too, about the hand floating in space.
Mark Hamill mentioned it as well.
Yeah, so I mean, it's nice, but I guess I have a question for both you guys about what you just talked about, Chris, with like the discovery of Exegol and what Palpatine was planning this whole time, all that stuff to, I guess, quote unquote, to improve the Rise of Skywalker. What are your thoughts? And again, I know we love comic books as a whole, but do you wish you would have gotten a lot more of that content in a live action type setting, or like a series, or an animation? Like, how do you feel about that?
Well, yeah, regardless, like I that was my one big thing with the Rise of Skywalker walking out. Is like, I wanted to know why the Emperor was here, how long all that stuff was down there. There's no explanation, and preferably I wish I would have gotten that in the movie. That would be great to understand that even in like a little flashback or something. But
Yeah.
if it takes them to put it in a comic book, I'll take it, whatever form. If it's there was stuff in a novelization, the Rise of Skywalker novelization literally confirmed that he was a clone, because even up until
Yeah.
then we didn't know if he was like the actual Emperor. Was he a clone? Like what was the deal? So even the novelization a couple months later was able to clear up a couple things. But it's like, why does it have to be made to be like that? You know what I mean? It should be made
Right.
to where we're scratching our heads leaving the theater, and there's only going to be like 1 to 5% of the Star Wars fandom reading these comics. So it's like
Yep.
it's like too little, too late. Obviously, at that point.
Oh yeah. Well, my thing with all that, Milton, is this is my constant creative pitch, Lucasfilm, if you're listening. I really think so. I was talking to my cousin about this literally yesterday. They have the money. Why not? Okay, so like as you read, Chris, like the main like comic line for Star Wars, like how it like just spans like everything or whatever. Like, why not have like literally a constant, like, sure, we have the Bad Batch right now, but have a constant animated series, like a Star Wars series, like start it from whatever time period you want and just do little 3-episode arcs, like 3-episode arc of this comic book we just talked about, 3-episode arc of that comic book, 3-episode arc of that, and like just build up a Star Wars line of comics, but on screen, like just animate it, and boom, like, you could have literally a constant stream of content, and it would be like connecting to the comics, like obviously because it would just be the comic books adapted to animation, and just make it like a 2 or 3 episode little arc, whatever it would be, like 60 minutes total or an hour and a half total. Boom, there you go. And then it's literally forever, because they're going to continue making books from here on out for Star Wars and comics. So like, I just think they really should do that, because it would potentially draw a lot more of the audience into the comics. Like, sure, you don't have to do that for every single comic that comes out, but maybe for like the Kylo Ren comic, for example. take that one. Everybody loves Kylo Ren. He's so popular, blah, blah, blah. If they make like a 3 or 4 episode arc and just throw it on Disney Plus, people would eat that up. Like, that type of stuff, I feel like it's just gold sitting there for them to mine, and they're just like, nah, we'll just leave that mine closed.
Yeah, it is frustrating. I mean, we see the success that DC has with these projects that I feel like are getting turned out every 3 months. I hear about another DC animated film, and it's just like, wow, like they are just turning those out, you know?
Yeah, I mean, look at we all look, all the DC properties for their animations are all on point. I mean, I'm sure there's some hiccups in there, but there's not many. Well, let's be real here. Like, they're all good. And like, even looking at Marvel's, miniseries or their limited series, whether it's Loki, Falcon, Winter Soldier, WandaVision, whatever, like they're showing that those formats work. People will sit down and watch them. Hell, Star Wars has a history of making it work too, with clearly Mandalorian, with the Clone Wars, with Bad Batch. They got Ahsoka coming out, Obi-Wan. Like, they can do this. So I wish that we can get some of that stuff that we really are craving, especially that 30 years in between Rise of Skywalker, or no, excuse me, Force Awakens and Return of the Jedi, because we still want to know what Luke was doing, and we'd like to see it in live action. Like, there's not one person I know that loves Star Wars that would tell me, oh no, we don't want to see what Luke was doing. No, we want to, because we still want to see we want to see, especially after the reveal in Mandalorian, spoiler alert, Luke shows up. We want to see that hero and what the hell he was doing to try to rebuild the Jedi. And then I want to see his fall. Yes, we see it somewhat in, The Last Jedi, but I want to see it in real time from Luke's perspective at that point.
Well, Milton, here's the thing with that. So, we all were just like basically crying when Luke came out and kicked ass at the end of the man. I think with him, what they could potentially do with Luke right now, and this isn't like an original theory or anything. This is from Christian Harloff. He's another movie reviewer. Anyways, his pitch on it, I think it's spot on perfect. His idea with it is they need to build up Luke as much as humanly possible in this time span as being the man, like the Jedi, the biggest, most powerful Force user in the galaxy, and build him up on such a high horse, because then when he has the failing of Kylo Ren, that will finally crush him after he's so high and mighty for this entire time period. Like, so, from that perspective, like, they could go crazy with Luke in Mando season 3 or Book of Boba. Like, you could make Luke literally, you could go Star Killer with Luke in these formats, like, because at the end of the day, we know where he ends up, and the thing that crushes him the most is the whole Kylo Ren thing. So
it's his family.
So it works perfectly. So build up Luke, make him be the biggest Jedi and biggest Force user in the galaxy,
right?
And then that'll at least somewhat justify what happened.
Right, Ben, I got you right here. Ben, I got you right here. So pretty much what you're saying is, one, you want to build him up by like John Cena and The Rock as the biggest baby faces in wrestling, or Stone Cold Steve Austin at that point, because those are probably the 3 to 4 baby faces ever in wrestling, and I'll throw Hulk Hogan in that, and then give him that Greek tragedy type of ending. Like, we know that his arrogance, he even says it, the Jedi arrogance or hubris. And they got in their own way, which led to the reason why Palpatine rise and Vader rose and whatnot, and my failure as a master, because I was a legend. I was legend.
We need to see him as a legend.
Yeah, like, so I do want to see that babyface build, and in that fall, because then I think I would then appreciate Rian Johnson's vision of, okay, Luke was this character that felt he was untouchable. Luke felt that, and not in an arrogant way, but more like Luke was a character that thought he was doing the right thing and no one can tell him anything, and he knew that his way was the best. He thought he understood the way of the Jedi. He thought he wasn't dogmatic like the Jedi were back in the prequels, when realistically, he got in his own way. He thought he couldn't save his nephew, so his only choice was, quote unquote, let me just kill him because Snoke got to him. When Rey said it, no, you didn't let him make his own choice.
Yep. Well, I think
So
I think I think the good part about it is I think we will get more of that in this universe. And the big meme, or not even meme, whatever, like fan created thing I saw this week as well. Man, someone put a side by side picture of Luke from Mando next to Rosario Dawson's Ahsoka, and I was like, oh man, if we get Luke and Ahsoka meeting in like the
Oh,
Ahsoka
it's gotta
series,
happen.
that is going to be amazing. And the good thing about it is too, you know, you could potentially have them either in combat together, or you could have the big conversation where like Ahsoka literally finds out, fully confirmed, Vader came back to the dark, light side and everything. And then,
Yeah.
that series will also build up Luke potentially even a little more. Maybe Luke helps out Ahsoka, then he leaves or whatever. But I think Luke is already developing some of that almost like hubris, arrogance, whatever you want to call it. Because, like I said, from our first initial a Mando finale reaction, like Luke, him doing that like force crush on that dark trooper, like that was basically like a power move. Like, hey, like I'm the guy here, people. like, like I really think they're gonna do that, and I think that's the way that Luke's character arc is gonna go. It's just a matter of how they do it, because right now he has Grogu, so we're gonna see something.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah. Lots of fun talk on the future of Luke and where that can go. And man, oh
Yeah.
man, I feel like we could spend a whole episode just talking about that.
Yep,
But
that's a podcast for another day.
yeah, that is
Moss
definitely
Metal, so
because
that's a story for another day.
I do want to get the Bad Batch. Really, I
yeah.
thought this episode was great. And everybody out there listening later, give us your favorite comic book moments. Let us know. Twitter, comment in the video down below what your favorite comic moments have been so far. But yes, we had season 1, episode 6, titled "Decommissioned," out today as of recording this video. And of course, we're gonna go into spoilers. So if you guys have not watched it, come back, watch this later. But what happens in this episode is we have the clones. They are still on Ord Mantell. We have Sid coming back to them saying, hey, look, I know you need my help and I need yours. And at the time, we have Omega training with the bow, Echo giving her pointers, which was really cool. And, well, their mission is to go to Corellia. So there we go. We get another big reference to Solo Star Wars story. In 1 week, we get 2 big-ass references between a character and a location, which is like, yes, this is great. This is awesome. So we get to see Corellia at a time before the Empire looks like it really took it over. We get to see these droids that are in control, and it answers one big question I've had for a long time is what's going on with the droids? Why don't we see any droid parts lying around on Cloud City or wherever else they go in original trilogy, right? It's because there must have been a mass protocol to ship these to different planets that can break them down for probably weapons and different metals that the Empire will ultimately make. So their mission is to get a T-Series T-Series tactical droid, which is just such a cool Clone Wars kind of tie-in. And it doesn't stop there, because then we get to see these other smugglers that are also going after that for their own reasons. And they turn out to be Rafa and Trace. And they are the Martez sisters that were also in season 7 of the Clone Wars. So now we have Bad Batch. We have them. We're probably going to get Rex. So there you go. It's like all the arcs of season 7 are transitioning into season 8, which I think is really cool. So by the end of this episode, we see what's happening with, I was going to say Gregor, but it's not Gregor, Wrecker. We actually see him saying, good soldiers follow, and he almost finishes a sentence, and he's like struggling. So we know for sure something's happening, and it's nice to see that they're actually acknowledging that, because we've seen that happen so many times where he's bumped his head. So I'm happy that they're finally getting somewhere with that plot line. But by the end of the episode, they succeed in getting the droid brain before it gets destroyed. But we have the clones basically saving the data, giving it to Rafa, and they explain, Rafa and Trey said, hey, they are working for a certain side. And we get this really cool tease of a hologram at the end. We have R7, a droid of Ahsoka, giving this transmission hologram of a character that we do not know, and they're reporting to a certain character. And I think there's going to be a lot of speculation around that. But before we get into that, I'm going to throw it over to Ben. What was your initial thoughts on this episode called Decommissioned?
I would say the episode is really good as a whole. Like you said, the show feels like it's more back on track now.
Hmm.
Um, just because there were so many good points throughout it. I feel like, like you said, you have the good soldiers follow orders thing. You have obviously the ending we'll talk about, and I really liked how the droid factory itself, or well, I guess breaking droid break recycle factory, I guess you would call it. Like, um, I love how it like mirrored Attack of the Clones so well. Like Attack of the Clones, you have the droid factory,
Yeah.
it's putting them together, and then you have Omega get into all this trouble in the factory, while the droids are getting broken down. I thought that was like a cool mirroring of Attack of the Clones. Um, and then I just thought it was a lot of fun as a whole. You know, obviously like the squad is getting more experience together. Omega's getting more experience now. She's like using her bow more. You have obviously like the stuff with Wrecker. I just thought it was a really really good episode as a whole, and like I said, I just feel like it's back on track.
Yeah. What about you, Dylan?
I'm going to surprise you guys. I actually really enjoyed this episode compared to last week's. Yeah, because I didn't like last week. I'm pretty sure, or no, the week before that. I don't like the weeks before that one. So this one, I have to agree with you on this, Ben. I thoroughly liked this episode, and the first thing I thought of throughout the episode was you, actually, Ben, because you keep bringing it up. Wrecker's got CTE and
Yep.
multiple concussions, and something's going to happen with him. And it was cool to see how they actually finally showed that chip is having an effect on him. And for some weird reason, I kind of wish that Wrecker would start recognizing he can't be like beating himself up all the time, but that's his name, Wrecker. That's what he does. So he's consistently consistent with his character. But I really enjoyed what's her name, Omega in this episode. I mean, she starting to become really comfortable, and I still see that she's very fearless about what she wants to be and who she's with. I like the bow. I really want that weapon for some weird reason.
Hmm.
Like it's an awesome bow.
Pretty sweet.
Um, but overall, though, I mean, it was nice to see that the who's the person that they work for? I forget.
Sid.
Sid.
Um, yeah, it's funny how she pretty much gave him no choice. She's like, "You
Yeah.
work for me now," pretty much, and that was like typical, shadiness that someone would do in that particular incident. But again, I thoroughly enjoyed the episode. I thought the action was very well done. Wasn't bored by it. It was nice to see that you know that someone's monitoring, not monitoring the clones, but like they're trying to. You see, someone's trying to build like an army or rebellion at this point because those two girls are on the good side. So like someone's trying to put together people to fight against the Empire. And I'm gonna make my guess right now. I think that person that we saw for like a minute might have been what's his name? Bail Organa.
Oh, that's a good choice. That's a good choice.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I'll give my thoughts real quick, and then we'll jump into that. For I thought this was like last week. I was saying it was becoming pretty formulaic, where it's like
Hmm.
every
Yep.
episode they're starting on a ship. Oh, either they have to get fuel or have to change the trip's transponders. They're coming up with different reasons to start the episode the same way to go down to a planet. I like how they really pick up in this episode right for where they left off. It really didn't leave much time in between. Um, there was a lot of heart between Omega and Echo, I feel like, because it's like that brings back kind of like those in a normal world, a normal society, like the father would be showing the daughter how to kick a soccer ball or how to throw a softball. But in this dangerous time, he's teaching her how to fire a freaking bow. And it was just neat seeing how she was struggling and coming through at the end with that. Um, Again, I like seeing a different planet. I think what they did with Corellia, it looked absolutely incredible as they were flying in. I couldn't really tell the difference between that and Solo. Like they did such a good job with doing the lighting effect and the smoke effects and all that. It was just it was really incredible work that they did there. Seeing the droids and just seeing the thing that really mattered to me at the end, they are so quick to just teaming up with the Sid person. They know that they worked with the Jedi. They know that, oh yeah, if they work with the Jedi, I guess they're probably honorable. But Rafa or whoever the character was straight up tells them like, you don't even know what you're getting this thing for. Like you don't even know. And he's like, oh well, we're just mercenaries. And they're like, they give them a thought like maybe you should start thinking more about who you're working for because you could basically be giving this droid to like subjugate people. Like they could use the army to like subjugate an entire world or something like that. So I think they really planted the bug in their ear about like, okay, who are they actually fighting for at this point? And they've been very very naive, I think, at certain points of what they're doing because they just haven't been trained as clones. They're used to having commanders to do all this work for them, not to like think on their own. So yeah, for the complexities that I just said, this is already a lot better than the last few episodes that we've gotten, in my opinion.
Oh, I agree 100%. I mean, I think this particular episode, you're right. It brought a lot of heart. It made the clones question, I guess, their loyalty. Um, I mean, and like I said, we know that this particular unit is very different compared to normal clones, so they kind of have more autonomy about how they run their missions, how to coordinate them. But you're right, though, too. They're used to having someone give them orders. Again, they're soldiers. So, but like I said, it's going to be curious to see how they evolve as the next, was it 11 how many more episodes you have left, whatever it is.
Yeah, about
See how
10, I
they
think. Yeah.
are, about 10, to see how they progress, because I am curious to see, one, who that person was, and we'll talk about that in a minute. And then two, how does this chip affect the team? Where's Crosshair at this point? The continued storytelling of the Empire, how that's going to be developed, and the phasing out of the clones. So
Yeah, yeah. I don't think we're gonna leave the people waiting any longer. Because I kind of want to start from the end of the episode. We'll work our way back.
Yep.
Talking about this character, Milton's already made his guess. I was dead set on it being Ahsoka, and then I rewinded and realized that they said him or something or
Yeah,
his
they
or,
say
or some
he
he.
or contact him. I think he. I think she. However she said it, she was like he, or no, she did say him. She was like, yeah, contact him. Blah blah blah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
so we got, and then I went back and I actually watched the last episode of the Clone Wars because they had R7, which is a droid that was Ahsoka's droid. It gets destroyed in the Venator going down, but then if you watch the end of the episode as they're putting the clone helmets on the stakes in the ground, you see a droid that is like an astromech droid that's being like taken apart, or it's already being taken apart. So it leads me to believe that they recovered R7, and maybe what happened was R7 like Rex left R7 with Rafa and Trace, and I think because obviously Rex would be very interested in um, other clones like himself being rogue clones out there. So I think they might be working for Ahsoka, but like their person they report to could be Rex as well, and Rex is like the one that's interested, and Rex might be like in like wearing a cloak or something. I think that could be Rex under the cloak. That would be my realistic answer, because I have a realistic speculation and more unrealistic speculation. Um, so yeah, my realistic is that Rex is underneath the cloak because he has a different costume because he doesn't want obviously anybody to see him because he's a wanted man, so he has to change his costume anyway. So he's gonna have like a cloak to hide himself. But if we're really playing the long game here, if we're gonna have Wrecker end up having a chip that malfunctions, it's not gonna matter because none of them are Jedi, right? Like the Order 66, you're not gonna kill your own brethren because of that. It's specifically only Jedi. So I think
right.
that character is gonna be some kind of Jedi, and it's definitely not Ahsoka, obviously. Um, I'm pulling one out of that hat, and I'm saying it's Quinlan Voss
Oh, that would be really
Yeah.
cool.
Wait, I
because
thought he died.
no, he did not, and that's according to the Darth Vader comics. Is he is actually alive? He's like his name is listed in Arabesh and like one of the holograms for like the Imperial
Okay,
saying like the surviving Jedi. There's like a whole list, and
right.
he has
Oh,
not
because
come up since.
gotcha. Because I remember in the Dark Disciple
Oh
book,
yeah,
because I know that's whenever they try to hunt down Dooku, I think, or something. And don't they use
yep,
what's his name or what's her name? Ventress.
yes,
She dies in that book.
mm-hmm,
Spoiler
Yep.
alert.
Mhm.
But yeah, like that. Okay, because Quinlan Voss and her kind of have a relationship,
mm-hmm,
right?
Hmm.
Maybe that's why I thought of him being dead. Maybe. Okay.
And that's why I think he would also be interested in rogue clone troopers. I mean, he had his own
Uh,
clones. He was a Jedi general at one point. So,
ooh. Okay. This is. Oh, I just thought about maybe this is a Jedi that they can bring in the canon.
oh,
Rom Coda.
Ooh, that would be
Yo,
that
because
would be awesome.
but then I remembered Coda never messed with. According to the Force Awakens game, Coda never had clones in his unit. He always had like his kind of like Saul Guerrero had his like guerrilla army.
Yep,
You know,
yeah.
but if they want to bring back Rom Coda, I'd be cool with it.
that would actually be really. I mean,
Yeah,
hey,
that'd be fire.
they pulled Thrawn and other characters out of Legends, so
Rom Coda would be
that would be
I
fire.
don't know. I think
I think I think I'm gonna have to agree with Krista on this. Like I think the character I think it's gonna be along the lines of like it's gonna be Rex. This is my prediction for the future of this like whole little arc with Wrecker. I think it's gonna be Rex. They're gonna meet up with Rex wherever Rex is. Ahsoka could potentially. It's gonna be another like okay, you met me, and then Ahsoka's actually over here on this planet, so that'll be another episode. So this will be like a 2 or 3 episode thing. But whenever we get to Ahsoka, I think they'll be having some type of an initial conversation, and Wrecker's just gonna go crazy because again, a lot of this show is focused on Omega's development. And what would be a bigger thing for a kid than seeing her, like, basically uncle, like, try to kill a Jedi right in front of her? Like, so something like that, I could definitely see, like, Omega freaking out, going, like, Wrecker, no, blah, 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 like, I think it's going to go along those lines. But now, okay, if you want to go, like, really crazy, like, out there, my prediction is this is just going to be straight up connected to the Kenobi show because maybe this is going to be maybe it'll be Obi-Wan because I mean he was I mean in episode 4 anyways like Leia said he fought with her father in the Clone Wars blah 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 like all this stuff so did Obi-Wan really was his last meeting with Bail really in Revenge of the Sith? Because I don't think it is really just because, in Rogue One, Bail was wanting to go literally, I have a Jedi friend or whatever he says, like, and he leaves for Alderaan. So, obviously he most likely was in contact with him up to that point. So maybe it's Obi-Wan. I mean, I don't know. I don't know. I feel like the good thing is with this show, there's limitless possibilities because the easy answer for all of us is Captain Rex and Ahsoka. But the show also offers the opportunity to switch it up, whether it be Quinlan Voss or Rom Coder or Obi-Wan or whoever.
mm-hmm.
I think I don't know, it could be really good. Who knows? It could be Mace Windu for all we know.
Yeah. Yeah, I've
like,
seen people speculating that actually.
I think though, honestly, if we ever get to that point of him coming back, it has to be live action. There's no way you can do that animated. But in terms of this show, I think it'll probably be Rex and Ahsoka, but it could be one of our 3 choices. But then again, it could be a Jedi we're not even thinking of. And I'm not sure. I only watched the episode once, but is it even confirmed that that's like a Jedi character? Like, do you see a lightsaber hilt? Because I don't think I saw one. Okay, so it really could be. So it could be anyone. Really, I'm just thinking of cloak wearing figures. Yeah, I mean, I don't know. It's gonna be fun.
It is, and we got ARC Trooper 9265. He's saying we'll see Rex. Yeah, and then another bit of evidence that I've seen that it's got to be Rex, because, or some clone, I guess I should say, Rafa or whoever. I can't tell the 2 different characters apart when they're wearing the disguises, but one of them at least had a clone blaster, just like Rex's.
Yep.
So that leads me to believe, like, yeah, it's definitely Rex that is their contact, because he would have like given them armaments to be like to use as kind of weapons. I don't think they would just steal them from a clone. Like he probably gave them to them, you know.
Yep. Oh yeah, I think that's a really good possibility. Um, yeah, I don't know. This episode as a whole offered so many different potential future story points. Like we said with this stuff with this cloaked figure, and then another point I was going to bring up to both of you was, who do you think Sid is reporting to with this tactical droid? Because I was thinking, is it either going to be the Empire, or is it going to be like I almost I was thinking about it when I was having dinner tonight. Maybe, like, what if it's the Kaminoans? Like, what if they're wanting this tactical droid to basically have as part of their whole like next phase they were being secretive about? What if they wanted that tactical droid to maybe help help with whatever, like help fighting back against the Empire with like the stormtroopers, so they have their backup plan basically?
Yeah, I don't know. That could be a possibility. I don't think
Yeah.
the Empire would want droids, obviously, right? I mean, at this point, they're over
Right.
that.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. I know Palpatine and all those guys aren't about the droid. So I mean, it could be a possibility, but like I said, I don't think. I just wouldn't see, the Empire reverting back to the old ways.
Yeah.
I think maybe Jabba or another crime syndicate would want to have a droid army.
I mean, hey, what if they do some connections to like the Crimson Dawn? Because
They've
right
already
now,
done that in the Clone Wars.
I
With
was gonna say
Maul.
they done that in the Clone Wars with Maul, and like right now in canon, I mean, Maul would be like around, so like maybe they're connected to Maul. Like, I don't know.
Yeah.
There's so many potential opportunities because you have this stuff going on with the War of the Bounty Hunters comics. Like, what would be a better way to like even connect further, like to the crime side of Star Wars? I mean, look, we have Fennec Shan still in the mixture
Yeah.
too. Like, we haven't even mentioned Fennec Shan really in this episode. Like,
Right.
what if we're still going to have that crime side of Star Wars? I think we're going to get a lot more of the bounty hunter side. Like, I think we're going to get more than just Fennec Shan in this series. And I just think, I think there's a lot of possibilities when it comes to this whole show, just because there's so many doors that are getting left open that are all going to have to get closed by the end of this season. It's just a matter of how are we going to get to that point.
Oh, yeah. Did anybody else think that Han Solo might make an appearance in this episode? Because I thought we would actually see like a 10-year-old Han running around trying to steal the stuff.
Yep.
I honestly didn't even think about that. I knew it was Corellia, but I thought nothing about him, which is crazy.
Yeah, I was kind of nervous. I was like, oh my gosh, if they tie Han Solo into this thing this early on, it could be like another Rebels thing where it's going to be like, everything's getting connected. Like, it's a small galaxy. So I was kind of happy that they didn't do that. But I think the Trace and Rafa is a great example, because those are two characters that I wanted to know, like, what happens, because they introduce these characters. They're in like 4 episodes or whatever, and then they're just gone. Like, we never see Ahsoka go back to them to like explain what is going on. They're just kind of left there to wonder. They didn't like Jedi, but then they accepted Ahsoka as a Jedi. So at the end of that, so it's really cool that we're actually going to be able to hopefully see some kind of like resolution when it comes to those characters and see how they actually grew. And it was probably only been like a couple months in reality since we've seen those characters in that last arc.
Oh yeah, I can't wait to see what happens with them more. Like you said, just because it was like kind of left open ended with Clone Wars, and now only a couple months later, all of this is going on. And also, that's a cool thing just with their characters alone, like showing how they went from like not caring to now they're, with the rebellion.
Oh yeah.
That's a good point. Yeah.
Yeah, that is a good point. Just completely that's character growth right now, and we're gonna see how that goes. I liked the homage, like you said already, to Attack of the Clones. I think that was really cool seeing the moment of Omega like trapped on that conveyor belt. It kind of brought back memories to like Anakin with his hand being like screwed down to the conveyor belt with the super battle droid arm. So that's like 2 episodes in this season 1 where we gotten like 2 big homages to Attack of the Clones. So apparently there's somebody working on the show that grew up in the same era as me or something on this show.
Oh yeah,
Yes.
I think we're gonna get more. I mean, look, we have the Kaminoans. They're in this show, so like I think we're gonna get even more Attack of the Clones related things. Just just because, like you said, Chris, like somebody on that show is most likely a fan of that movie or something. Um, and then I think we might get something along those lines. You know, I think there's still a decent chance we get Boba Fett in this series. Like, and maybe it's like a young Boba Fett without the helmet, like it, and
Oh
so it
yeah.
looks like
Right.
so it looks like Daniel Logan and all that sort of stuff. So maybe we'll get even more of like a little bit of connections and whatnot. And like I said, or let Daniel Logan's Boba Fett come out and like the blue Django armor, like that'd be pretty sweet.
Oh my
Um,
gosh.
Yeah, that'd be pretty cool. That'd be pretty dope.
like just something like that. I think there's a really good chance for a lot of those type of things. And the good part of those type of homages, like you said with the droid conveyor belt, for example, like that's something cool that we as hardcore fans are like, oh man, that's cool. But someone watching the episode, they would still think it's an exciting episode, and it's nothing whatsoever someone has to know, but it's just again another like rewarding point they're putting into this show from another piece of content.
Yes, yes, yes. So, with that being said, let's get into our final thoughts and score out of 10 to wrap this one up. I'll start with Milton first on this one.
Yeah. So overall, I really enjoyed this episode. It didn't seem like it was a filler. It seemed like it just was more about heart, like you mentioned earlier, Chris. It was more about heart, more character development. Just to see where these characters are going to go in the future, and it kind of questioned their loyalty, and mainly questioned their purpose. It was nice to see little seeds of Wrecker's potential corruption, and maybe there's might be a fracture within the team again, and how that might be traumatic for the team because they did lose a team member, or I guess in this case a family member. So, and also too, it's gonna be curious to see, okay, what's going on with the, I guess, the quote unquote creation of the rebellion. Who are these people reporting to and what their purpose is right now. So overall, I thought this episode was solid. It was really good. I really enjoyed it. I would say it's a 4 out of 5.
4 out of 5. All right, let's go over to Ben.
All right, I would have to echo a lot of Milton's points. I thought the episode was really good as a whole. It showed a lot of heart. You also have what do you also have really good homages and reveals. Like, you have the character at the end, that's drawing all of our interest. Like, who's it going to be? You have, of course, the Attack of the Clones homages we talked about. Omega's character development, in connection with the squad is growing. And again, like I said, she's still my favorite character of the show so far, just because I think I'm most interested to see where she ends up, because her character's growing. It went from a few episodes ago to her saying, "Oh, let's go explore a planet," to now she's learning how to use a weapon.
Yeah.
Like, that is a very, very fast, dose of reality for a kid, because she's
Hmm.
however old, like probably 12 years old or so. Like, that's a very, very quick dose of reality for a kid. I mean, and they even talk about how like basically the bounty or whatever is out on her specifically. So that's
Uh
even
huh.
more like um big, more of a bigger thing. So like I'm really interested to see where she ends up. Just because I think we're going to have, as I said, a potential impact with this whole Wrecker situation like I've been saying it since Wrecker hit his head early in the season. Like, I really think we're gonna get to a situation where either Wrecker, it could be potentially a Jedi, like a no-name Jedi. Maybe Wrecker kills, like maybe they find a stranded Jedi and
Yeah.
he kills them. Like that
Ooh.
that could it could literally just be a no-name Jedi. None of us know, whatever. Like maybe it's a Jedi that tries to help him out, and then Wrecker just totally freaks.
Oh.
And they're like, no, brother, don't do it, and he just like blasts him away or something. And then
Man.
Wrecker gets snapped out of it. Like maybe Hunter like hits him and knocks him out, or maybe, hey, maybe that's when Omega uses her. Oh man, this is totally off on a side tangent. What if Omega uses the Force and Wrecker tries to go at her? Like
Oh.
that. I mean, we have a potential for that even. But anyways, back to this episode specifically. Like, I really think it's a good episode that, as we talked about earlier, it got the show back on track, and we're heading in the right direction for sure. And with all that being said, I would have to say this ties my most favorite episode, which is whichever one had the Nexu in it. I would have to say this is going to be an 8.1.
Oh, 8.1. Okay, so we got a 4 out of 5, 8.1. I'll grade the 4.5 as basically an 8.0 out of 10. And that's going to be my score, 8.0 out of 10. I really enjoyed just seeing it break out of its formulaic roots that we've been seeing over the last couple of weeks. They started off on the planet this time. The spectacle of exploring Corellia. We haven't seen Corellia since Solo: A Star Wars Story, aside from the many comic book appearances it has had over the years. Seeing different action sequences that were thrilling and had me on the edge of my seat. Seeing the droids, seeing the clones, the Bad Batch, acting as an oiled machine when they're first went in there. Everybody had their own little job. Everybody did this. Everybody did that. They're very well executed in what they had to do. They haven't lost that even on their own. Seeing Wrecker have the chip malfunction and what that could imply. Seeing what could happen with this hologram at the end that brings it into the overall story. Seeing maybe the seeds of a rebellion being planted. Seeing Hunter kind of taking a step back and be like, oh, maybe I am working for the wrong person. Maybe I should think about morally what I'm doing rather than just taking money. Maybe I should put my foot down and not just say yes to everything. So there's a lot going on. Omega learning how to use the bow and actually succeeding and really growing as a character, and seeing characters from the Clone Wars coming in and seeing where they've been, and we're going to get resolution on that. Just so much forward momentum in a single 20-minute episode. It was it probably was like the shortest episode. I mean, they're all generally like 22 minutes, but this was like pretty much 20 minutes, which is fine because it told the story it needed to tell without feeling like it was rushed or taking too long. So overall, good pacing. And like I said, 8 out of 10 for me. So yeah, there you have it, guys. For having no news this week, we ended up having our longest episode yet, so that's always fun. We do have one comment in here at the end of the episode, so I'm gonna just shout that out real quick. Whisper, do you think Anakin fulfilled the prophecy in Return of the Jedi or Revenge of the Sith? Yes or no?
Oh man, that is a podcast in and of itself.
I know. I was like, let me just read this real quick. I'm like, oh
yeah, that's going to be a podcast. Like, it has to be.
I'll take a quick stab at it. I'll do a 60-second rundown. Okay, I would have to say, you can look at the prophecy in a couple ways. Based on Rebels, Obi-Wan sounded like he didn't really believe Anakin was the chosen one, because when he kills Maul, it sounds like he believes Luke's the chosen one. But then I still think it ended up being Anakin fulfilling the prophecy, just because the episodes 1 through 6 was Anakin's story. So I would have to say yes, Anakin fulfilled the prophecy, because I've always viewed it like this: no matter whether the Emperor comes back or not, it doesn't matter, because the thing about it is, if you like saying, like in real world, like if you have an army or if you have a country have an evil ruler, and that evil ruler gets taken out, and then 100 years later, they take power back, it doesn't defeat the purpose that that country got defeated. That still happened. That still was significant. So that mission was still fulfilled. So I think Anakin still fulfilled the prophecy, because he did bring balance to the Force.
Yeah. What about you, Milton? Real quick, under 60 seconds.
No, I got you. I'll make it simple. My answer is going to be it wasn't Rey. Like I said, I say that facetiously, but I mean that Rey was not the one who brought back balance, people. Okay, so get that out your heads. We all know who it was. All right, it was Anakin, and we'll get into that more later. But it wasn't Rey. Facts. Woo!
Yep. So thanks for the comments. If you would like to leave a comment, you can always do so on our Twitter. You could just make sure you use hashtag Outer Rim Transmission, and we will do our best to sort through those in the meantime and try to bring them up. And maybe we'll have like a Q&A for like the last 10 minutes or something of each episode, because we try to get these episodes under a little bit under 2 hours, and obviously we're going a little bit over tonight. And it's getting late here, everybody, so we're going to try to wrap things up. But as I said at the beginning of the episode, if you guys are watching this video, or if you're watching it live or after the fact, we do have this in podcast form. Every Monday we will put up the episode that goes live on Friday to all your popular services like Apple, Google, and Spotify for you to download at your listening pleasure for your work week or whatever you tend to do, work out at the gym, whatever. So yes, I also have the YouTube channel. Make sure you go ahead and subscribe and do like the content, as that helps everything out a little bit better. So do you guys have anything left to say? Go ahead and plug your stuff.
Nah, guys, we appreciate everyone who's watched, who listens. Thank you. We love the support. Follow me on Twitter at MiltonWeber7. Again, MiltonWeber7.
Yep. And for me, you can find me on Twitter and Instagram at RealBenMaynard. And as Milton said, we're definitely thankful for everybody listening, downloading. Be sure to share this podcast with all your friends, because Star Wars is for everybody. It's not for everybody. It's not for just, us hardcore fans. Everybody loves Star Wars. It connects all audiences. And, I think a lot of people can find a lot of enjoyment from this podcast. And, make sure you subscribe to Chris's channel, because, he helps me and Milton out a lot with his videos that he makes. Like, me and Milton, we can't keep up with all these different books and comics. Like, Chris is the guy, and
right.
We have to watch his videos. So like, if you want to keep up with all the latest in books, comics, and everything related to Star Wars, be sure to subscribe to the channel.
And well, there you have it. Very, very well said. So for Milton, for Ben, and for myself, thanks for watching Outer Rim Transmission. This was episode 10. We'll be back next week, approximately 9 o'clock Eastern. Until then, everybody have a great night, and we'll see you next week. Bye-bye.